Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Sa panahon ng pandemya, ang tubig ay mahalaga. According to the World Health Organization, access to safe water, sanitation, and hygienic conditions are essential in protecting one's health during the pandemic. With such a finite resource and an ever-increasing population, water shortage has always been a threat to health and economy globally. In the Philippines, the looming water crisis is characterized by constant supply interruption, lack of potable water, and higher water rates. Today, we will tackle the franchise application of two water concessionaires, Maynilad Water Services Incorporated and Manila Water Company Incorporated, in the hopes of urgently addressing these pressing water supply and distribution issues. Maynilad Water Services Incorporated and Manila Water Company Incorporated came into picture when the government was unable to meet the water demand in the country. Through a concession agreement in 1997, we entrusted the delivery of water and sewerage services to these private companies. We are already familiar with these two companies at maaring karamihan sa atin ay customers nila. Therefore, as end users, we can make qualified judgments if these applicants are deserving of a franchise. Nevertheless, we have invited several resource persons and stakeholders to assist us in making this call. In this hearing, we want to understand how the recently revised concession agreements and the grant of a congressional franchise will be beneficial to the consuming public. Hindi na ba kami mawawalan ng tubig? Kamusta naman kaya ang magiging rates ng pagbayad namin sa tubig? Magmumura ba? O kung magmamahal man, ano ang dahilan? Malinis ba ang maiinom naming tubig? Makakaasa ba kami na gaganda ang serbisyo? We also want to know what is our guarantee that these commitments will be fulfilled. Madaling mangako, pero mahirap tuparin. We need to ensure that the safeguards are in place with the hope of not repeating the mistakes of the past. Ang hirap mawala ng tubig, lalo na sa panahon ngayon. We also want updates from MWSS on the master plan and the progress of developing new water sources to augment supply and meet the increasing demand of water. Huwag gamiting dahilan ang pagtaas ng populasyon o ang summer or El Nino for the lapses in service. These are unavoidable realities which we should prepare for. We always remind applicants that the grant of franchise is not a right, but a privilege which carries immense responsibilities. Serbisyo muna bago prangkisa. Naging maayos ba ang serbisyo nitong nakaraang 2 dekada? We are for the continuity of water services, but we expect a good provider, the new normal under the revised concession agreement. We can't just always appease our countrymen and say, dadaloy din ang ginhawa. We want to experience that care in every drop. So with that, may I ask the committee secretary to read for the record our resource persons that are logged in. But also before that, I would like to acknowledge the presence of our dear colleagues, Senators Zubiri, Marcos, and Binay. Perhaps if there's any short opening statements from our senators present here today.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just here to listen intently on the discussions on the bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Majority Leader. All right, to our secretariats, please read the names of our resource persons, and then after which we should actually administer an oath, just to be sure, because this is an important matter to discuss. Secretary, please go ahead.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and to the other senators present. We have the following resource persons at the moment. From the MWSS Metropolitan Manila Metropolitan Water Works and Sewerage System Corporate Office, we have Mr. Patrick James Dison, Division Manager, Attorney Portia Lino, and Attorney Zara Mina Ponay. From the Metropolitan Water Works and Sewerage System Regulatory Office, we have Mr. Ivan Bernard T. Samson, Deputy Administrator Claudine B. Orosio Isorena, Deputy Administrator Evelyn B. Agustin, Mr. Christopher D. Chuegan, Attorney Felix Francis B. Ople, and Attorney Ray Carlo M. Bonita. From the Department of Justice, we have Attorney Melvin Suarez and Attorney Redmond John Zulueta. From the Securities and Exchange Commission, we have Mr. Gerardo Tan, Attorney Trina Donabel Junco, and Attorney R.J. Bernal. From the Philippine Competition Commission, we have Attorney Ramon Jeriel Sawit. From the Department of Finance, we have Undersecretary Karen Singson, Ms. Sara Conche, May Ann Nagera, and Ms. Arlene Tolentino. From the Office of the Government Corporate Counsel, we have Attorney Elpidio Vega, Government Corporate Counsel, together with Attorney Howard Arzadon and Attorney Jonathan Nicolas. From the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, we have Ms. Catherine Pagkatipunan. We have Engineer Olivia G. Bejo, the Chief of the Licenses, Patents, and Deeds Division, DNR Region 4A. We have Mr. Mamerto Madriaga Jr., the Chief of the Water Resources Utilization Section. We have also Engineer S. Jimar Levy R. Rito, Forester Melinda B. Marco, Forester Joseph A. Dacasin, and Mr. Lloyd Bautista. From the National Water Resources Board, we have Attorney Archie Edsel Asuncion, the OIC Deputy Executive Director. We have Attorney Juan Y. Corpus, the Chief of the Water Utilities Division, and Attorney Rebian Giselle Diaz. From the Department of Public Works and Highways, we have Attorney Darius Francis M. Paduada. From the Department of Trade and Industry, we have Attorney Cheryl Carbonell, the Assistant Director of the Consumer Protection Group. We have Ms. Shirley Vasquez. From the Bureau of Internal Revenue, we have Attorney Roy Sean Tansinko. From the Office of the Solicitor General, we have the following observers: Attorney June Abigail de la Cruz, Sir Kyle Guerrero, Sir Emil Justin Sebrian, Ms. Emma Lane Loreto, Mr. John Dale Balinan, Ms. Maria Alexandria Izara Maroto. From the private sector, we have from the Manila Water Company Incorporated, we have Mr. Donato C. Almeida, Director and Chief Regulatory Officer. We have Ms. Cecilia Cruzabra, Chief Financial Officer. Mr. Abelardo Basilio, the Chief Operating Officer. Mr. Virgilio Rivera, the former COO or Chief Operating Officer of Manila Water Corporation Non-East Zone Operations. Mr. Silverio Benitan, the Corporate Secretary. Ms. Nines Maningat, External Legal Counsel. And Ms. Ia Loriana Ramiro Castro, the Head of the Enterprise Legal Services. And Ms. Kay Reville, also staff of the Head Enterprise Regulatory and Stakeholder Engagement Group of the Manila Water. From the Maynilad Water Services Incorporated, we have Mr. Ramoncito Fernandez, the President and Chief Executive Officer, with Mr. Randolph Estrellado, the Chief Operating Officer, Attorney Ponciano Cruz, Legal Counsel, and Attorney Cristina Joyce Gangan. From Laban Consumer Inc., we have Attorney Victorio Mario A. Di Magiba. From the local government units, from Malabon City, we have Attorney Voltaire de la Cruz, the City Administrator, together with Ms. Elizabeth Gutierrez, the Senior Environmental Management Specialist, and Mr. Mark Messina. From Muntinlupa City, we have Mr. Roger John P. Smith, Deputy City Administrator. From Parañaque City, we have Attorney Lubimindo Balinang Jr. from the City Legal Office and Attorney Arvin Q. Tapia. From Quezon City, we have Mr. Vincent Binarao, Acting Assistant Department of the Quezon City Environmental Protection and Waste Management Department. And then we also have Attorney Vicente Topacio. From Valenzuela City, we have Attorney Mark Lee Espiritu from the City Legal Office and A.R. Edison Ching Padilla. From the province of Rizal, we have Mr. Joseph Senidosa, Provincial Administrator of the Rizal Provincial Government. We also have right now Attorney Patrick Lester T, the Chief Regulator of the MWSS Regulatory Office. And we also have Attorney Angela Regalado, Project Manager from the Department of Finance. That would be all for the meantime, Madam Chair.
Thank you to our ComSec. May we ask our resource persons to please, and our committee secretary to administer the oath. Please turn on your cameras.
Good morning, everyone. May I ask everyone to raise your right hand? And you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in this public hearing and investigation. Please say, I do.
Do.
I 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 do.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We shall begin perhaps with the present, if the concessionaires are ready to give us a brief presentation on their concession agreement and what they plan to do in the next 25 years, if that's what we will be granting. May we begin with perhaps Maynilad?
Yes. Good morning, Madam Chairperson, the honorable members of this committee, and everyone in attendance at today's hearing. Thank you for considering the subject bill seeking to grant Maynilad Water Services Incorporated the franchise to provide water, sewerage, and sanitation services in the west zone of Metro Manila and the province of Cavite. Our company is the existing water concessionaire for the west zone area of Metro Manila pursuant to a concession agreement with the Metropolitan Water Works and Sewerage System, or MWSS. Maynilad is currently the largest water concessionaire in the Philippines in terms of customer base. Maynilad and MWSS recently signed a revised concession agreement which acknowledges Maynilad's status as a public utility than just an agent or contractor of MWSS. A legislative franchise will formalize and strengthen Maynilad's status as a public utility and will allow congressional oversight over its business. We are pleased to let you know that since the new owners of Maynilad took over the company upon its reprivatization in 2007, Maynilad service levels have significantly improved. However, with the continuing demands on our service area, the security and stability of a legislative franchise will give Maynilad the opportunity to enhance its ability to continue investing in the water and wastewater infrastructure needs of our country and to deliver our commitments. 1, to expand our distribution line to unserved areas. 2, to consistently deliver water that meets the Philippine national standards for drinking water. 3, to use advanced technology for reducing water losses. 4, to accelerate sewerage and sanitation programs. And 5th, to contribute to nation building through our services, investments, advocacies, and corporate responsibility program. We thus seek your favorable consideration of this legislative measure. Thank you. Madam Chair, you're on mute.
Thank you, thank you. May we ask now, first I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Senators Villanueva and Senator Recto. Thank you, sirs.
Thank you.
Maybe, do you have any opening statement, Senator Joel or Senator or Pro Tempore Senator Recto?
No, Madam Chair, I'm here to listen and support the chairperson, of course, as always.
Thank you, sir. Thank you to Maynilad for your presentation. May we ask now Manila Water to do theirs?
Good morning, Madam Chair. I have a short opening statement, please. Dear Madam Chair, honorable members of this committee, good morning. We thank this honorable committee for setting for hearing the bill to grant Manila Water a legislative franchise. This application for legislative franchise is a consequence of Manila Water being declared as a public utility under the revised concession agreement signed last March by Manila Water and the MWSS. As a public utility, Manila Water will now be subject to restrictions applicable to all public utilities, such as nationality restriction on its ownership and management, limit on rate of return, and gives Congress oversight, including the authority to amend, alter, or repeal the franchise when the common good so requires. The revised concession agreement is respected and considered as the Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity, or CPCN, when a franchise is granted to Manila Water. We will continue to cooperate with the MWSS as our contract counterparty, as well as the MWSS Regulatory Office as our regulator. We will propose a provision granting MWSS authority to amend the revised concession agreement to extend its term to the term of the franchise when public interest so requires. The franchise addresses the possible changes in the water regulatory framework, in which case Manila Water will work with the new water regulator. This is a significant milestone as Manila Water is now able to focus on the continued implementation of our service improvement plan that will ensure sustainability of water supply, as well as improve wastewater and sanitation services for our customers in the East Zone. We remain committed to the delivery of a 24/7 water and wastewater services to our customers. We are submitting to this honorable committee a short briefing paper to explain the salient features of the franchise bill. We are ready to respond to any questions the committee may have, and we look forward to a fruitful discussion this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Almeda. Perhaps we should also ask the MWSS to explain to us this new concession agreement that you approved, what the difference may be from the last ones. As we know, there were certain issues like the rates and as well as the water sources. So we would like to hear from MWSS.
Good morning, Madam Chairperson. I am Attorney Augustine Bestil Jr. of the MWSS. With respect, Madam Chair, to the changes brought about by the revised concession agreement, may I respectfully yield the floor, Madam Chairperson, to our statutory counsel, the Office of the Government Corporate Counsel, which was directly involved, Madam Chairperson, in the negotiations for and preparation of the revised concession agreement.
Yes, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair. I am LPG Vega of the Office of the Government Corporate Counsel. With regards to the revised concession agreement, the following changes were made in accordance with the instructions of the President. First, we confirm that there has been a change from mere agent to the public utility status of the both concessionaires. Second, the revised concession agreement has deleted the provisions on the currency exchange rate adjustment and the foreign currency differential adjustments, which were present in the former concession agreement and which are deemed to be disadvantageous to government.
Okay, Mr. Vega, can you expound on that, please? Just assume that most of us here will have to have a clear picture of this foreign exchange rate adjustment. What you're saying is, hindi ito magiging pabigat sa gobyerno. Ngayon, sa mga kumukonsumo naman, ito ba ay maipapasa pa rin sa kanila?
No more, Madam Chair. That's the reason why these particular provisions were deleted, when in fact, during the time of the former concession agreement, these were passed on to the consumers.
So ang sinasabi ninyo, pag nag-iba yung rate of exchange, hindi apektado ang presyo ng tubig?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay. Nililinaw ko lang po kasi hindi po lahat ng nakikinig, kasama din ako, ay sanay sa mga terms ng mga legal na ganyan. Kailangan mas maging malinaw sa ating lahat. Okay, go ahead please.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes,
Madam Chair.
Senator Binay.
Just a quick question, Madam Chair. Dito din sa foreign exchange, meron bang naging kapalit ito?
With regards to the revised concession agreement, ma'am?
With regards dun sa foreign currency, paano na yung magiging status? Magiging fixed na ba siya? Or walang naging kapalit? You just deleted
Walang
that?
naging kapalit, ma'am. It will be the same as the rates will be considered as their own risk.
Okay. So magiging burden na nila. Okay.
Yes,
Thank you,
Madam.
So Attorney, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Senator Hontiveros. Welcome, ma'am. So Attorney, paano naman? I mean, this is just out of curiosity, kung ang exchange ngayon ay $50, 50 pesos to $1, let's say. Tapos naging abrupt yung change. Halimbawa na lang, some world event may nangyari, tapos naging 70-1. I mean, just being practical, how are the concessionaires going to be able to maneuver that or adjust?
Madam Chair, that was already considered as their own risk.
Are you serious? So even if, let's say, so right now, it will be pegged at how much? Are you saying that it will forever be pegged at 48-1, or there is a percentage that we are...
There is none, ma'am.
So from now until 25 years, ito na yon?
It depends upon the current exchange rate, ma'am. Meaning they're going to bear their own risk on the loans that they have incurred.
So what you're saying is, since the loan was incurred at this time with that particular rate, they'll be able to service that loan with that rate in the years to come. Ganun ba yon?
Yes, ma'am.
Paano ngayon? Di ba merong mga capital expenditure? So lahat yan ngayon nila gagawin. Paano down the road if they need to do repairs? So they need to probably borrow more. Is that the risk that they're saying they're willing to take?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Senator Joel, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I'm just going to try to help out and explain. I'm quite knowledgeable with the very first privatization, Madam Chair of MWSS. I remember when foreign currency differential adjustment was introduced. It is because whenever they take a loan during the time year 2000, Madam Chair, pag tumataas yung dolyar, tumataas din yung utang adjust po ng adjust, no? Panay adjust. So I think our friends from OGC, si Attorney Vega, if I'm correct, no, what you're saying now is that everything is being risked by the concessionaires. Now, yung foreign rates will no longer matter, and that they will have no right to pass on despite the fact na tumaas or kung bumaba. Kasi kung bumaba din naman, Madam Chair, then mas malaki yung kita nila, di ba? So, is that what you're saying, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. I think mas naging malinaw. But one last, Madam Chair, if I may, no, I think yung isa sa major issue na natatackle long before yung non-water revenue. I think you are aware of that, Attorney Vega. No? So what happens with that? Because in the past, I remember, in 2000 pa, mga decades ago, Madam Chair, yung mga leaks nakikita sa kalye, sa EDSA, dyan sa iba't ibang daan, pero naibababa pa rin yung non-water revenue, hindi na isasalin kasi meron supposed to be target yan na pababa ng pababa yung leaks, yung mga problema sa pag-supply ng tubig. Ito ba kasama na sa bagong concession agreement?
Yes, sir. That is part already of the revised concession agreement. In fact, the non-revenue water reduction will be a target for each of the concessionaires, and if they will not meet the target, there will be a corresponding penalty for this non-revenue water.
Okay, thank you. I would agree with that. Perhaps if you can give us more details paano yung targets, no? Baka naman mahirap naman or impossible for the concessionaire to reach the targets. O practical ba yun? Ito ba yung decent target? And yung ba nag-agree both parties, sir? Last question, ha?
Yes, yes, sir, because these targets would also need a capital outlay, and that will be considered in their business plan, in their business plan.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your patience. Sir, thank
Yes,
you.
I see the hand of Senator Marcos, but first I'd like to thank Senator Joel. Kahit hindi abogado, test naman natin, mas na-explain. Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Amy?
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair Grace. Since we have the government counsel here, I wanted to inquire from Attorney Vega. Kontento na ba kayo dito sa setup ng ating concession agreements, or do we need to amend yung sa Maynilad and Manila, given that they filed arbitral cases against the Philippine government with separate arbitral rulings in Singapore for the Philippine government to pay onerous sums, 7.39 billion to Manila Water, 3.4 billion to Maynilad. Garantisado na ba ngayon na following the announcement of the President last January against both concessionaires na hindi na ito mangyayari? Sa opinion lang po ninyo.
Yes, ma'am. The revised concession agreement was also, there was also a condition on the waivers of these awards which were granted to both concessionaires. They had in fact filed these waivers and has been accepted by the government. So as of now, there is no longer any award to be implemented by both concessionaires, and any arbitration that will occur in the future will now be handled under the arbitration law of the Philippines.
So you are certain that this will no longer be a problem in the future? Kasi this was a quite acrimonious and long-winded battle, as you're well aware.
Yes, ma'am. I think
Yes.
I think this will not be a problem anymore in the future, ma'am.
All right. So the non-implementation of rate hikes, as far as you're concerned, are secure now. Ma-implement na. Ganun ba yon? O paano ba ang sistema ngayon? If you could just give us a clear-cut explanation of how it will work, yung procedure sa rate hikes. Kasi yun din tinatanong ni Madam Chair kanina, paano yung procedure sa rate hikes ngayon para hindi na tayo mag-away-away sa concessionaire?
With regards to the rate rebasing, ma'am, I'd like
Yes.
to pass on this particular explanation to the Department of Finance, who may be present in this particular hearing for a complete picture of how the rate rebasing now would be implemented.
Yes, please. Whoever can answer it, try to explain it as in layman's terms as much as possible, because it's important in this public hearing na hindi tayo lang ang nakakaintindi nito.
Oo.
Okay.
At higit sa lahat, ito presyo na eh. Talagang diretso sa bituka to eh. Yung presyo ng tubig, dahil doon nagkaaway-away yung ating concessionaire sa ating gobyerno. And ang sabi, hindi daw inimplement ng gobyerno yung rate hikes na pinipilit at karapatan ng ating concessionaires. So paano ngayon? Para hindi na maulit to.
Yes, go ahead. Sino magsasalita? Sinong aako?
Haray ko.
Supposed
Dapat
to be the
nanumpa.
regulatory office, Madam Chair. The regulatory office is that is their mandate.
Oh, MWSS to, di ba?
Kaya
Yes,
nga.
the regulatory
Oo.
office.
Nasaan na? Parang walang gusto.
Good morning, Madam Chairman. Good morning, Madam
Okay,
Chairman.
Yes, please.
Yes,
Can you hear me?
Mr. T? Okay.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chairman. I'm the Chief Regulator, Patrick T. With regard to the rate rebasing, this is done every 5 years, and the next one will be done next year. We are actually in the process of preparing for it right now.
So it's every 5 years. What are the factors that you consider in rate rebasing?
Well, we check the CapEx rollout of the concessionaires during the past 5 years or during the past fourth rate rebasing. The next one is the fifth rate rebasing. Afterwards, we check that all of their expenses should be prudent and efficient, and if there's any expenses that we should be disallowing. If there are any expenses that we should disallow, this will not be, the two concessionaires will not be able to pass on these expenses to the public. So that's with regard to the question about the decision of the arbitral panel, we will make sure that this will not be passed on to the public, and we will go over the financials of Manila Water and Maynilad with a fine-tooth comb. We normally obtain a private consultant, normally a reputable audit firm, to audit the books of Manila Water and Maynilad to ensure that these kinds of expenses will not be passed on to the public. Then we also check on the business plan.
Sir, how much
Yes,
is it
we
now
also check
per
on the business plan. Sorry.
how much is it now per cubic meter?
Around 28 pesos per cubic meter for Manila Water, around 36 to 37 pesos per cubic meter for Maynilad.
Okay. Mas mahal ang
That's the
Maynilad kasi
average tariff.
mas malaki ang coverage area na hindi pa natatapos yung dapat na infrastruktura, tama?
I'm sorry, breaking up.
Bakit mas mahal sa Maynilad?
Sorry, can you repeat that? My connection is weak.
Okay. Oh, dapat tawagan mo din yung Maynilad, baka yung connection
Oo
mo
nga,
sa-
baka may sagot kayo kasi ang
Okay.
laki naman ng agwat.
O bakit mas mataas sa Maynilad? Bali ano yan, di ba? Ano ba yung West Zone ba yun? South Zone?
Yeah. Okay. Mas mahal ang Maynilad because in 1997, most of the facilities of MWSS were absorbed by Maynilad, and Manila Water has to build its own network. So majority of the loans also of MWSS were absorbed by Maynilad. That's the reason why it's higher, as well as during the privatization in 1997, Maynilad gave a higher bid compared to Manila Water. Manila Water actually technically gave a lower bid for East Zone and the West Zone. However, because of the bidding rules, they are only allowed to win one of the areas. So they were able to win the East Concession Zone, but for the West Zone, it was awarded to Maynilad, which submitted a higher bid.
Attorney T? Attorney T?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Are we content with this huge disparity in price? I think it is precisely what the chairwoman was saying earlier, that we shouldn't pass it on to the customer, when in fact, this is very clearly being passed on to the customer. All the issues of the very high bid price, of all the old infrastructure of MWSS, kahit ano pang dahilan, ang bagsak niyan, ang taas ng presyo para sa Maynila, di ba? Sa lahat ng customer at coverage ng Maynila. Are there no efforts to equalize these rates?
Yes. Right now, we are. That's actually part of the plan going forward. But we are also limited on the performance of the two concessionaires because they are both required to roll out a lot of capex projects. So that has a limitation on the rate rebasing.
I see. Attorney T, kanina, yung tinatanong natin, yung rate hikes, at saka yung rate rebasing, parang wala naman na nag-iba dun sa sistema, dun sa i-analyze, i-audit, yung kanilang business plan versus performance, capex, and then expenses on infra and other build costs. That's the same old procedure. How will this, in fact, avert a similar arbitral ruling in some foreign court?
The RCA now provides that the decisions of the MWSS
will be in the Philippine arbitration, under the Philippine arbitration law. That's what you're saying, po.
No, I'm talking about the decisions of the regulatory office as part of its mandate as a regulator. It's no longer arbitrable.
It's no longer arbitrable. Okay. So along with this issue of the Singapore arbitration rulings that we lost, the Philippine government lost, last August 2019, Maynilad and Manila Water, together with you, with MWSS, were all fined by the Supreme Court for not complying with the Philippine Clean Water Act. What's the status of the fine, and what are the steps being undertaken to finally comply with Section 8 of the Clean Water Act?
The MWSS RO is not part of the court case. I think that's part of the MWSS corporate office. So I have to defer that to the MWSS.
Iba pa ba yun?
That's different. Yes, I am from the MWSS regulatory office. That is judgment was against the MWSS corporate office.
Ay, Madam Chair, may ganun pala. So, iba pala yung corporate office. Ano nangyari sa fine? Baka alam ng Maynilad at ng Manila Water.
Iba talaga yan kasi yung isa implementer, yung isa policy.
Tama. I see. Okay. So, baka naman merong taga-corporate office. Balitaan na lang tayo. Update lang naman to kung ano nangyari dun sa fine.
Yes. Good morning, Madam Chair. With respect to the pending Supreme Court case, the MWSS, together with the concessionaires, filed separate motions for reconsideration, which are still pending, Madam Chair, with the Supreme Court. At the same time, efforts are being exerted by MWSS to comply with the directives of the Supreme Court with respect to the Sewerage decision, Madam Chair. So while the
that's the question. What are these efforts?
Construction, Madam Chair, and cleanup of the storage systems, as well as emphasizing or prioritizing, Madam Chair, the interconnection for sewerage services as required under the Philippine Clean Water Act. In fact, Madam Chair, we submit periodically to the Supreme Court our reports on the constructions, on the efforts undertaken by MWSS to comply.
Perhaps you could give us an update or a written report to the committee, given that this will establish the precedent for all the LGUs also that are at present in violation of sewage laws, as well as septage, which has come into play. So perhaps what you are doing will become the template for future efforts, and it's vital that at this early stage we know what needs to be done for all the units of government. So please report na lang po para maliwanag sa amin yung performance ninyo.
Yes, Madam Chair, we will undertake to submit the said report, Madam Chair.
Maybe, Madam Chair, we can ask Manila also and Maynilad. Kasi
Okay,
sabay-sabay na kain eh.
So your question again, Senator Amy, is with regards to their efforts for the sewage system to improve it?
Yes, kasi yung violation of the Clean Water Act, everybody was found guilty by the Supreme Court. Maynilad, Manila Water, MWSS, dapat siguro hindi na mangyari yun, nakakahiya naman. So I'm wondering what Maynilad and Manila Water did.
Actually, if I'm not mistaken, and please, resource persons, please correct me if I'm wrong. In the original concession agreement, the percentage of the responsibility of the concessionaire for the sewage infrastructure was different, was actually amended when we passed this Clean Water Act. So
That's
parang
right.
naghahabol. Tama ba yun?
Yeah. Oo, tama yun eh.
Okay, so anyway, sagutin na muna yung tanong at maklaro kay Senator Marcos ng ating mga concessionaires, yung kanyang tanong, capex ninyo para sa sewage system. After that, I'd like to go back to my original question. Paano yung mga rate rebasing? Papayag ba kayo kung between 20 plus pesos per cubic meter to 30 plus pesos per cubic meter after 5 years? What is your threshold of increase? What can we expect that it will not go over a certain percentage? Kasi baka mabigla naman tayo after 5 years kung 200% ang tinaas, di ba? So anyway, before that, MWSS and Manila Water, please answer the question of Senator Marcos.
If I may, Madam Chair, for Manila Water.
Go ahead, sir.
Tuloy-tuloy po naman kami sa pagpapagawa ng aming mga sewerage at wastewater treatment plants. Kasama po yan sa aming service improvement program. Taon-taon na sinasubmit sa MWSS at kasama po yan sa aming mga CAPEX requirements na sinasubmit also for the regulatory office. So yan po ang aming I guess commitment to comply, sustain compliance dun sa ating Clean Water Act bill.
Mr. Almeda, it's
Opo.
nice to hear that you're willing to comply. Give us in concrete terms how you are doing that. For example, where are you now focused on improving the sewage line?
Hey, Madam Chair, if I may defer the answer to our Chief Operating Officer for the E-Zone, Mr. Abi Basilio is right now with us.
Yes,
Perhaps,
Mr.
Yeah,
Oh,
Madam
of
Chair,
course,
can I?
But yes, of course you may, but these are the questions. What exactly are you doing? Where, which areas? And what is your target to be able to honor your commitment? How many % of the sewage lines assigned to you will actually be completed and when?
Yeah, just to give, Madam Chair, just to give details on our accomplishment. Just to give a background, in 1997, actually Manila Water inherited only one sewage treatment plant from MWSS. To date, we have actually constructed around 39 STPs, 39 sewage treatment plants all over the East Zone, including 2 septage treatment plants which caters to dislodging activities. we've actually provided for around 428 kilometers of sewer pipes for us to provide sewer services to our customers. To date, we're actually having a coverage of around 31.5% in terms of sewer coverage. Our target for this year is actually 32%, so we're about that target for the year. So we will continue, as mentioned by Mr. Almeida, to continue expanding our sewer coverage by putting up more infrastructure for sewage treatment plant. We will be putting up STPs in Pasig, Mandaluyong, in areas of Quezon City. The capacity of which would be around 100 MLD to 120 MLD. I think that will be one of the biggest
Kompleto
STPs.
po yan. Mr. Basilio, sabi niyo 30% increase ng sewage coverage per year, or what are the targets? When can we expect you to be fully compliant?
This target since 1997, I think when we took over.
Kaya nga
Yes.
wala na masyadong naniniwala eh.
Yeah. It was just 3% during 1997. To date, it's around almost 32%. That's our target. That's the approved target
That's not
given
your
to us
target.
by.
32% is the actual. What you're saying
Yes.
po? 32% is yung actual. Kailan aabot tayo sa 100% na dinedemanda ng Supreme Court?
Yeah,
May target date po ba?
The actual is around 31.5. The target given as approved by our regulatory office and MWSS is 32% for this year. So we're just about that target. And
But both would make it 64% po. Ang tinatanong ko, kailan tayo magiging compliant sa Supreme Court? Ilang taon ang maaasahan ng tao?
Based on our coverage.
DENR at ng lahat ng nagbabantay sa Clean Water Act.
Yeah, based on our approved business plan with NWSS and RO, will be about almost 100% by 2037. Based on this.
Kailan?
2037.
2037, ang tagal po noon, grabe. Ba't ganun katagal? Samantalang you said that you were able to reach the 32% target in the year.
Yes,
Ngayon, another ilang taon to, 16 years. Nagkasakit na lahat ng anak namin by then.
Bakit naman ganon? Bakit yung medyo alanganin 30+% in a short number of time? Tapos, di ba? Yung natitirang 70.
Madam, I think we just have to give a view of how this will be done, because in order to put up this infrastructure.
Well, it's clearly being done too slowly, Mr. Basilio. Hindi po pwedeng ganun. Ang tagal naman po. Ang tagal na naghintay 1997, 1987. Ngayon, 2037 na naman.
Yeah.
Actually, Senator Amy, dapat sa MWSS yan. Bakit sila pumapayag?
True, bakit sila pumapayag? Correct.
Sige, MWSS, can you please answer this? What was the explanation to you of our concessionaires? Why did you allow these targets to stretch on until that 2037?
Good morning again, Madam Chair. The question, Madam Chair, would also be within the province of the MWSS Regulatory Office, Madam Chair, because the MWSS Corporate Office receives the recommendation made by the regulatory office during each or after each rate rebasing period, and then acts accordingly, Madam Chair. So the determination on the pace and the extent.
Sige, balik tayo kay Attorney T.
Yes, sorry, I got disconnected. What was the question?
Attorney T, where are you right now? Why are you always getting disconnected? Maybe your area needs evaluation for internet service.
Yes, I apologize, Madam Chairman.
You're in the MWSS office.
Madam Chairman.
Where are you? Are you in the MWSS office?
Yes, yes, I'm in the office.
Maybe you should ask your concessionaires to also look into your internet connection.
Yeah,
I think they have the ability to do that.
Yes.
So please answer the question. Senator Amy, can you please repeat your question?
Yes, my query is to MWSS. Ba't naman kayo pumayag na hanggang 2037 magko-comply itong Manila Water pagkatagal-tagal naman? And we all know there's already a Supreme Court ruling, even if it's under recon.
That the 2037 is based on the Supreme Court ruling before with regard to the Manila Bay cleanup. Actually, when I entered into the office 2017, when I was appointed, the Supreme Court has already issued a ruling that gave the two concessionaires until 2037. And I think in 2019, another Supreme Court decision came out saying that penalizing the two. So actually, we are still waiting for the Supreme Court to reconcile the two cases. As for
That's right. The more recent case, Attorney T, the more recent case is actually saying that it shouldn't take so long, hindi ba?
I understand. What we are planning to doing is actually fast tracking the sewerage coverage. But in the meantime, we are pushing the two concessionaires to improve their sanitation coverage. Right now, the total wastewater coverage of Manila Water and Maynilad, I think, is around 60 to 70% already.
I think that's optimistic, Attorney T. Baka yung 60 to 70, I very much doubt it, for all the areas that we've been looking at that have no septic tanks at all. So I think maybe, Madam Chair, because we all want to go back to rate rebasing and rate hikes, perhaps we'll just ask from MWSS a quick report on the status, just a summary to let us understand what's going on. It's huge confusion because your data is so different, and even the Supreme Court decisions that you're referring to are not the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Amy. Actually, since we're already we're renewing their concession agreement, we should have actually included all our wish lists already. Why are we being so conservative with what we expect from them? But anyway, Attorney T,
babait na natin ngayon kasi baka mapagalitan ulit.
Nakalagay Ivan Samson, hindi naman sa'yo yan, ano?
Sorry, I had to switch computer, sorry.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm still talking to the same person. Okay, Attorney T, can you explain to us now about the rate rebasing in 5 years? Because right now, if they're charging an average of, let's say, between 20 to 30 pesos per cubic meter, considering the factors that may happen in the next 5 years, what is the maximum? Do you have a maximum allowable amount of increase? Because we don't want to be caught by surprise if all of a sudden there's a 200, 300% increase. What are our safeguards that there won't be a drastic increase in rates?
The RCA provides for a rate cap given for the two concessionaires. So based on the RCA, they are only allowed up to an increase of 30% on the tariff and 50% on sewer rates. So
okay,
yes.
So 30% on
water and 50% on sewer.
Okay, so that's the cap, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, my next question is, I know that the corporate income tax has been deleted as part of expenditures, but their Philippine business taxes are retained. So ano yung mga taxes na na-retain na yon na ipapasa sa consumers?
They can only pass on, for example, a VAT if they bought a equipment or they bought any infrastructure projects that has customs and duties or VAT or any other sales tax. They can pass on that to the public.
Okay, let's go now to Maynilad. Can you please also explain in connection to the question of Senator Amy with regards to your sewerage service compliance and expansion?
Madam Chair, I'm Randy Estrellado from Maynilad. We're practically same position as Manila Water as far as being able to meet the Clean Water Act because the Clean Water Act wanted us to be 100% already 5 years ago. But I think even MWS understands, that's why it's part of the business plan, na matagal ho talaga maghukay at gumawa ng mga planta para ma-hit yung 100%. Sa kasalukuyan ho, meron kaming ginagawang 4 na planta, sabay-sabay, sa 2 sa Muntinlupa, sa Valenzuela, sa Las Piñas, which will bring our coverage from 21 to 47% pag natapos ho. Pero ang pinag-umpisahan ho namin dyan was only 8% coverage when we took over in 2007 at 2 planta lang ho. So sa ngayon, naka 22 plants na ho kami. Pero I guess, although sabi nga ni Senator Marcos parang ang bagal, na mahirap hutan talaga dahil sa nakokos ho naming traffic and pag ginagawa ho namin itong mga projects na to. Unlike ho water, ang sewerage pipes mas malalim ho kaysa sa water, mas matagal ho ang hukay. And given ho yung state ng traffic, talagang give and take ho kami with the LGU sa mga permits para makausad ho dito sa mga projects na to. And similarly rin ho, ang approved plan din ho sa amin is to hit 100% coverage by 2037. In fact, kalahati ho ng capex budget namin hanggang matapos ang concession is all for sewerage. And yun ho ngayon nga, yung mga konsiderasyon na yan ang hinihingi ho namin sa Supreme Court as far as the Clean Water Act is concerned.
So the 2037 deadline of the old Supreme Court ruling is the one that you are working on. Hindi talaga magagawang mas mabilis?
Yes, ma'am. Sa ngayon ho, actually challenging nga ho yan, pero we're doing everything ho we can para ho ma-hit talaga yung 2037 deadline. And we're still hoping Supreme Court will be considerate.
Pero bakit ang bilis-bilis ninyo ng Manila Bay nung nagkagulo-gulo na at talagang na headline ng tuloy-tuloy lahat ng ating mga concessionaires? Bakit mabilis naman nagkalagayan sa Boracay at Manila Bay ng septic tank? Ganun ba? Kailangan magkagulo bago kumilos ang MWSS at yung mga concessionaires? Doon lang bumilis eh. MWSS or any one of you, kaya namang gawin pala pag yun nga, sinasabing may political will, kaya naman palang gawin. At yung reklamo naman ninyo is actually traffic at saka the fact that infrastructure bothers a lot of the LGUs. Are you saying it can be done sooner?
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, I'm Patrick T again from the MWSS RO. During the 4th rate rebasing, actually, one of the offer of one of the concessionaires is to reduce the spending in capex for wastewater in exchange for a lower tariff adjustment. I made it a point as part of my advocacy to increase the wastewater and to focus on wastewater during the 4th rate rebasing. That is why part of the rate rebasing for the 4th rate rebasing is actually to push for wastewater. This was in 2017, even before Boracay and Manila Bay issue came up. So as far as the RO is concerned, we are pushing for an increased spending in capex rollout for wastewater. That has been a perennial problem, and we recognize that.
Yes, thank you very much. And as recommended by the chairwoman earlier, and also pending the submissions of Maynilad, Manila Water, and MWSS of updates on the compliance with the Clean Water Act and the Supreme Court, may I urge that, as the chairwoman said, perhaps we can give due consideration for this immense problem, given that we're confronted with the health crisis, climate change, and all such problems related fundamentally to water. So siguro we take a look at the concession agreements with a view towards also covering the area of wastewater. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Amy. This is my question. We've had a lot of discussion about water shortages. And during that time, the concessionaires were really saying that it was MWS's responsibility to approve the tapping of new water sources, but MWSS was seemed to be passing it on to the concessionaires that they should have had those water sources. So can you explain to me, kasi ito, agreement lang, pero kahit na ayusin natin yung mga infrastruktura kung wala naman tayong pagkukuhanan ng tubig. So ano na ba nangyari dito sa mga dams na mga kaliwa, kanan, hindi ko na alam kung ano. So ano ba talaga at saan tayo kukuha ng tubig? Meron bang bagong sources? Kasi alam mo, ang totoo niyan, business has really slowed down and we know that because of the pandemic. Pero ang usap-usap nga, kung hindi tayo nagkaroon ng pandemic and businesses and our economy grew even more in 2019, talagang magkakaroon ng water shortage ng summer. So now, explain to me, MWSS, what are our new water sources?
Madam Chair, maybe while they're trying to answer, I will just inform the body that the Kaliwa Dam project has been in my Committee of Cultural Communities for several months now. And we found in the committee report, as it stated, that MWSS was in violation of so many laws, including the NCIP law requiring free and prior informed consent from the indigenous people, also from both the DENR as well as other bodies requiring the SAPA or the special use of protected areas. They also proceeded with the DPWH road singularly for that zone without all these papers in place, including the ECC. So ano na nga ang nangyari dyan? Yan ang one and only source na narinig ko pa noong dekada 70 na magiging source ng tubig ng Metro Manila.
Kaya nga, so hindi pa, Senator Marcos, hindi pa nga nag-uumpisa yung Kaliwa Dam, di ba?
Hindi nga. In fact, nag-cease and desist yung DPWH doon sa kalsadang patungo doon, yung construction road eh.
So paano na ngayon? Ano yung source natin ngayon? Angat pa rin? La Mesa Dam? Ano na yung... Kasi hindi naman magbabago siguro, no? Kung, I mean, ganun pa rin yung problema natin kung wala naman tayong bagong water source. 21 times na tayo binibisita ng bagyo, wala naman tayong pag-iimbaka ng tubig na na dumarating dito sa atin. So, saan? Saan pa tayo? Senator, Majority Leader is recognized.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I believe the Kaliwa Dam is already under construction. I can recall that was one of the statements of the President, I think several years back, a couple of years back, that because of the delay, nagalit siya. That's why he was pushing for ease of doing business, because precisely there are government agencies, with due respect to the DNR, with due respect to the NCIP, that were taking forever to actually process the documents. Hindi naman tama yan because mawawalan tayo ng tubig. There was a problem of water supply. So, of course, without violation of the law, they have to comply with these permits. But let's also make sure that these agencies naman comply within the 30-day rule or the 20. Actually, it's 20 days of the ease of doing business. Yan ang number one complaint ko kasi inaabot minsan ng taon-taon. One example with the NCIP before, no longer I think a problem now. I haven't been receiving any problems. But titled property where I put one of my power plants in Bukidnon, titled yan meaning my prior rights. In other words, there's a law before a title approval of the IPRA law. So pagka ganyan, automatic na yung permit, Madam Chair, ng NCIP that it is not within the ambit of walang claimant, in other words. Pero it took me 1 year pa rin to get just the certification na kaya ang tagal eh. So what happens is we have to make a balance. We have to strike a balance. And I think Kaliwa Dam is already, if I'm not mistaken, maybe we can ask MWSS, but Kaliwa Dam is already under construction. I think when Mr. Razon took over the concession, napabilis yata yung trabaho nila dun sa lugar na yun.
Okay,
Maybe we
so,
can ask the development of that.
MWSS, please enlighten us with the current status of Kaliwa Dam as well as other water sources.
Yes, Madam Chairperson, to address the questions of this committee with respect to the Kaliwa Dam as well as the water source roadmap that is adopted by MWSS, may I refer you, Madam Chairperson, in this committee to our Deputy Administrator for Engineering and Technical Operations, Engineer Dorado.
Okay, before you answer that, who is the chairman of the MWSS?
The chairman of MWSS, Madam Chairperson, is General Reynaldo V. Velasco, Madam Chairperson.
Is he present here today?
Unfortunately, Madam Chairperson, he had a prior commitment, Madam Chairperson, which was scheduled since last week, and extends his apologies for not being able to attend for today's committee hearing, Madam Chair.
No, we've had hearings in the past, and just recently, there is actually a law that says that whoever is the head of the department has the responsibility and the burden of the responsibility. And it's really difficult to be conducting these hearings as such a very important matter when your head of agency is not even present.
Yes, Madam Chairperson.
Anyway, go ahead and answer this. Answer the question that we have on the water sources.
Yes, Madam Chairperson.
Good morning, Madam Chair. I'm Engineer Dorado po, Deputy Administrator for Engineering and then Technical Operations Group. Firstly, I would like to discuss about the Kaliwa Dam project. Regarding our issues regarding the NCIP or the FPIC, Free Prior Informed Consent, this has been applied by MWSS since 2015. At hanggang ngayon po ay nasa negotiation process pa rin kami. We had this meeting with the IPs last May 17 and 19 to validate the memorandum of agreement. Unfortunately, hindi po kami nagkasundo. We seek the assistance from ARTA. Nasa ARTA na po kami para po matulungan ng MWSS para fast track po yung pag-secure namin ng FPIC. Sa SAPA po naman, we're working this out with the DNR, also with their branches of DNR, katulad po ng SEMRO at saka yung mga sa PMRB. Ongoing po lahat itong processing po ng permits.
May ECC na ba kayo? Speaking of DNR.
Madam Senator, meron na po. 2019 po na-issue ang...
Hindi, pero yung ECC ninyo conditional, naalala ko eh. Pending the submission of other required documents. May ganun eh.
Madam Chair, lahat po ng ECC po may conditions. Ang conditions po ito...
yes, I understand. But in your case, you never met the conditions.
We're working on it, Madam Chair. Ang conditions po kasi sinasabi ito during...
paikot-ikot eh. Yung NCIP rin ang conditions at saka yung SAPA eh.
Yes, Madam Chair. Actually, Madam Chair, yung SAPA at saka NCIP po, requirement po ito prior to construction. Ang kontrata po natin kasi ay design and build. Meron po tayo mga submissions during design and may submissions po tayo during construction. Ganun po yung nakasaad po dun sa ECC ng Kaliwa Dam project.
Okay, so anong ending? Anong ending nito? Ano yung update? Yung sinasabi ni Majority Leader na under construction na ba talaga o nahahadlangan pa dahil hindi nga mabuo-buo yung mga papeles mula sa NCIP?
Madam Chair, ganito po. Ang location po ng project natin is dalawa po. Ang isa po sa Quezon. At isa po
by the way pala, di ba nag-o-object rin ang LGU ng Quezon at yung governor ayaw na daanan siya?
At this point in time, Madam Chair, hindi pa po kami nakapagsimula sa Quezon.
Kasi nga nag-o-object yung buong probinsya.
We're trying to address this, Madam Chair. Nakikipag-usap din po kami sa government ng Quezon. patungkol po dito sa project na to. At actually, Madam Chair, may
Pero sa
endorsement
ibang
po.
probinsya, nag-umpisa na kayo?
May tawag dito sa probinsya po ng Rizal, doon sa outlet area namin, hindi po ito sakop ng ancestral domain. We have very minor activities there. Sa preparation lang po ng site, kasi po yung TBM po natin parating na po. By November po, dito na po yung tunnel boring machine na gagamitin po doon sa tunnel excavation po natin.
So in conclusion, ang sinasabi po ninyo, it's not yet in construction. Hindi totoo na nag-umpisa na yung construction.
Wala pa po construction, Madam Chair.
Okay, Madam Chair, at least we clarified that the Kaliwa Dam, regardless of media and other reports, has really not started construction.
Okay, so now my follow-up question is this. So wala pa yung Kaliwa Dam. Ano ang mga bagong water source na meron kayo? Kasi kung hindi, it's almost a guarantee that there will be a water shortage once we return to some sort of semblance of normalcy. Ano pa? Ano pang sources?
Madam Chair, if you would allow me to share my screen, meron po kaming PowerPoint dito na mapapakita po yung water sources po ng MWSS.
Okay, before you do that, I think Senator Risa has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a brief manifestation towards MWSS. I'm afraid yung appeal sa Anti-Red Tape Act hindi po sasapat kung hindi pa talaga nakapagbigay ng free, prior, and informed consent yung indigenous people doon. Kasi hindi naman po usapin lang ng red tape yung FPIC. And I hope na sa tulong ng DENR at sa iba pang stakeholders that the MWSS will be able to remain faithful to the process hanggang kung ibibigay ng IP doon ang kanilang FPIC, hanggang maibibigay nila. Because that will be a proper requirement for that to push through. At saka yung binanggit din po ng good attorney ng MWSS na yung sa Rizal side hindi subject sa ancestral domain, paki-check din po at double-check dahil halimbawa mula sa karanasan ng Masungi Geo Reserve which just suffered attacks against its forest wardens, sabi din po nila that there are at least 2 indigenous peoples doon kahit dun sa reserve na nasa side din na palibot din sa proposed Kaliwa Dam na may ancestral domain claims doon kung hindi pa man title. So just for the record, Madam Chair, salamat po.
Yes,
I'd like
Madam
to,
Chair.
before you begin with your presentation, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of our minority leader, Senator Frank Drilon. Go ahead, MWSS.
Madam Chair, I would like to answer the statement of our honorable senator. Tama po kayo, dalawa po yung ancestral domain natin dito, isa sa Rizal at saka isa sa Quezon. Ang binagabanggit ko po na hindi kasama sa ancestral domain is sa banda po sa Teresa. Maliit na portion po ito ng project natin, nasa mga 3 to 5% lang po yung area na kinocover natin sa outlet area natin. Yun po ang binabanggit ko na hindi po kasama sa ancestral domain. Yung sa ARTA po, Madam Senator, nagpapatulong lang po kami para ma-facilitate po yung mga proseso na dinadaanan namin. So, kasi po, mabanggit ko lang po ulit, yung FPIC po namin, Madam Senator, sinimulan po natin ito noong 2015 pa po. Nag-apply na po kami ng FPIC clearance noong 2015 po. At hanggang ngayon po, pilit pa rin namin tinatrabaho at hipag-ugnayan po kami sa mga IPs ng Quezon at Rizal po. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
I-share ko lang po yung screen namin sa water source namin, roadmap.
Yan.
Madam Chair, nakikita na po yung sa screen namin.
Yes, we can see it.
Before I begin with this water source roadmap, I would like to inform the body that this projection was based from the study conducted by UP NEC in 2016 po. So itong supply demand na to, this will be updated once the new demand projection study will be completed this September of 2021. So as you can see po, 2021 hanggang 2022, we have this supply of 96 MLD po. So maliit lang po ito, pero this would help address the water supply by this year. On top of Angat po. Yung blue line po sa baba po yan po yung current supply po natin na nanggagaling po sa Angat Dam. And then po, ang next magiging supply natin by 2023,
So
ito po ay
excuse me lang, no? Tinitignan ko lang yung chart para lang mapabilis yung ating hearing po. Hanggang sa dulo ng 2023, wala tayong maaasahan na new water sources kasi halos flat yung inyong curve at kakarampot lang naman ang maidadagdag kung may idadagdag pa. So I'm wondering, yung sinasabi na water shortage ng ating chairwoman, tuloy-tuloy pa rin yan sa 2 taon na susunod. Tama ba?
Madam Senator, tama po kayo. Ang ginagawa po ng mga concessionaire natin ngayon po, ay nag-utilize po tayo ng mga deep wells ngayon para ma-augment po yung supply po para sa hanggang 2023, Madam Senator. So we're getting water from our deep wells, existing deep wells, Madam Senator.
So ako, Madam Chairwoman, payag pa tayo noon?
Hindi, actually, hindi ito problema ng concessionaires eh. Itong problema talaga ng gobyerno eh. Kasi yung concessionaire, syempre, hindi naman din sila mga kilos kung wala rin namang mga permits na ini-issue to tap those water sources. So, to be fair, right now we are hearing the franchise applications of the concessionaire. But we can see that the failure in tapping new water sources is largely the responsibility of the government. Diba? Anyway, okay, go ahead. Kasi, ano man sinasabi mo, 2021, 2022. Pero pag nag-full force na naman lahat, nagbukas na naman lahat ng establishments, restaurants, etc., lagot tayo dyan.
Kaya nga halos flat kasi hanggang 2024. Ang tagal pa noon, 2.5 years.
Anyway,
Madam Chair?
Yes, Senator Binay.
And just a question, kasi nakikita nga natin na mukhang may kakulangan ng supply sa water. Yung concessionaires ba natin, meron ba silang, ano ba yan? Can they penalize government for not supplying the water? May ganun, ano ba? Kasi meron ba silang ganong habol?
Baliktad.
Oo. Diba, I mean, pagdating dun sa rate rebasing ninyo, you will be evaluating the performance of the concessionaires. Kung meron silang violation, pwede bang i-minus rin namin yung violation ng gobyerno for not delivering on certain deals on their part? Wag na. Mukhang siyempre hindi. Sige, paki-explain na lang kung ano pa itong ginagawa nating magic dito para makakuha ng tubig.
Aray ko.
Madam Chu,
sige po, pasensya na po.
Yeah, may I continue po?
Yes,
Doon po sa diagram na pinapakita natin, yung nasa babang curve po, yan po yung average day demand na ginagamit natin ngayon. And then yung nasa gitna po, yan po yung maximum day demand. And then yung nasa red line po, yan po yung buffered demand natin. May mga allowances po yung pag-draw po natin ng water source natin. And currently, we are using the average day demand po. Kung makikita niyo po, sufficient po yung supply natin dun sa pag ginamit po natin yung lower curve ng diagram.
So we do not anticipate any problems with
To add po, Madam Chair, ang existing po natin yung water source ay una-una po yung galing sa Umiray natin, and then yung sa Angat, and then from the Manila water, we have the Cardona, and from the Maynilad po, meron po tayong Putatan. That sums up to the required demand for the water for Metro Manila po.
Sir, can you repeat? We have Angat, Cardona,
Angat.
Putatan. What's the first one before Angat?
Umiray po, Madam Chair.
Saan yan? Umiray?
Sa Quezon po, Madam Chair.
Okay. Ngayon, bago nagkaroon itong water crisis, apat din lang itong sources na to, no?
Yes, Madam Chair.
So, ba't tayo nagkaroon ng water crisis? Yung source natin sa Rizal ba nagkaroon ng problema?
Hindi po, Madam Chair. Sa 2019 po, Madam Chair, yung po sa Manila Water po yung nagkaroon po ng problema po sa water supply.
Kaya nga, hindi dahil sa kulang ba yung tubig o nasira yung pasilidad at anong nangyari noong 2019? Refresher memory.
May project po si Manila Water, yung Cardona po, hindi lang po na-deliver on time, kaya po nagkaroon po ng konting problema po sa supply ng Manila Water.
So ngayon, ayos na yung Cardona?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Ayun. Okay, yun yung tanong ko. So ang problema, pag merong isa dito na nagkaroon ng problema, lagot tayo.
Madam Chair, meron po tayo ongoing ngayon. Project din po si Manila Water dun sa Wawa natin at saka dun po sa East Bay po na ang pagkukuha na po ng tubig sa Laguna Lake. Pati po isang may additional po yung Maynilad, yung sa Putatan din po, additional po din yung supply po natin.
Okay, so yun ang tanong ko. So yung additional, Wawa, tapos
East Bay
Laguna
po.
Lake.
Laguna
Dati
Lake
wala yon.
Wala po, Madam Chair.
So paano natin, sa Laguna Lake, obviously, filter yan, di ba?
Yes, Madam Chair. Ongoing
How
po
are
yung
we, so paano na-ensure naman yung quality ng tubig sa Laguna Lake? I mean,
so yung design po ng mga water treatment plant nila, kukunin po rin yung quality ng tubig sa Laguna Lake and then they will do this design po para po matreat po yung tubig para maging potable water po siya.
so meron namang ugnayan dun sa Laguna Lake Authority kasi syempre yung watershed din doon kailangan pangalagaan, di ba?
Opo, Madam Chair.
Nagkakaroon tayo ng problema sa dami ng mga fish pens rin doon, hindi ba?
Yung Manila Water po, they are continuously coordinating with the Laguna Lake Authority po, Madam Chair. And also
Okay,
with the WSS po.
May I hear from Manila Water? Manila Water ba is the one? How are their dealings now with the Laguna Lake Development Authority?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, Mr. Almeida.
Meron po kaming projects sa Laguna Bay and we were able to get the permit from LLDA already and we are now continuing to develop the project. So tuloy-tuloy na po yan.
Kailan po yung matatapos yung magiging operational yun?
Again, I defer to Mr. Basilio, ang CEO namin po sa E-Zone. Mr. Basilio, please.
Yeah, Madam Chair, there will be two phase for dito sa proyekto namin sa Laguna Lake. Actually, meron po kaming Cardona, the Cardona or what we call yung Cardona treatment plant right now. It's already operating 100 mLT and we will try to actually extend it to 110 in the future. And this, I think, yung pinabanggit po ni Mr. Almeida is yung ating tinatawag na East Bay. We're also getting extracting water from Laguna Lake. 50 mLD will come by end of 2022 and by 2023-24 yung ating 200 mLD po. So we are trying to fast track para make sure na makakuha tayong tubig before 2023.
So teka muna, so
yeah.
doon sa Laguna Lake, kailan? 2020 ano?
50 mLD po by 2023, yung next 200 mLD by early 2024 po, just before summer po.
Okay.
Madam Chair, just to clarify, is it correct there are two Laguna de Bay projects, East Bay Water Supply Project, tapos yung Ama Bulk Water Supply Project? Pareho ba itong Manila Water?
Ang sa amin po, yung tinatawag na yung Cardona, as mentioned po kanina, Cardona, that's 100 mLD. At yung pangalawa
Cardona
po sa
is the
amin,
East Bay Water? Is that the one identified at East Bay?
iba po yun. Yung Cardona po, iba po yung lugar niya. Yung sa Central Bay po ng ng Laguna Lake, yung Cardona.
Okay.
Yung East Bay po, may bandang malapit po sa Laguna, sa Laguna province. So yung tinatawag na East Bay. So for
Sa inyo ba
Cardona,
yun?
sa amin po to, yung Cardona treatment plant 100 mld po and yung 250 mld po do sa East Bay. Sa amin po din.
Yung East Bay sa inyo din?
Opo, sa amin po.
Ano, itong AMA Bulk Water Supply Project, inyo din yun, di ba? Alin yung AMA doon?
Yeah, I think yung ating MWS po are getting, nung mangyari po yung water crisis, they are getting proposals from different proponents for water source. I think sila po yung makakalam kung ano po yung mga proposals coming from this. So I think MWAS can answer this.
Madam Chair, if we could just clarify from MWSS, ilan ba talaga itong Laguna de Bay projects? We have environmental and also water supply concerns because the timelines differ. So alin ba yung East Bay, Cardona, AMA Bulk Water Supply, at iba't iba pa? I know that Manila Water has been extremely aggressive and determined to find us new water sources. Pero sino pa ba ang nasa Laguna de Bay? At alin pa ba ang maaasahan natin ng dali-dali?
Okay, I think Maynilad President Fernandez is raising his hand. You're on mute, sir.
To add context, ma'am, on the sourcing of water from Laguna Lake.
Your connection is pretty bad, sir.
Maybe I can ask Randy. Randy, can you take over? Randy.
Sir, we still can't hear you.
Randy.
Okay. Ma'am, this is Randy. Madam Chair, Randy Estrellado again from Maynilad.
Okay.
Concerning ho sa mga bagong water source sa Laguna Lake, kung matatandaan niyo ho, noong March 2019 nung pinatawag ho kami ng Senado, at that time po 150 mld pa lang ho yung aming treatment capacity sa Laguna Lake, yung Putatan treatment plant ho. But by the following months ho, inaugurate din ho yung aming ikalawang planta sa Putatan. So total of 300 mld na ang aming tubig na nakukuha ngayon sa Laguna Lake, at that actually contributes 10% ng total supply ng Maynilad. So kung hindi ho namin naumpisahan yan, mas mahihirapan ho sana kami ngayon kung aasa pa rin kami doon sa tubig ho na nakukuha sa Angat. At dahil din doon, dahil hindi rin ho kami pa sigurado, dahil nga na-delay rin yung kaliwa, nakapag-propose ho kami sa business plan at in-approve naman po yung ikatlong treatment plant. Ito ho yung nasa chart kanina na tinatawag na Putatan ulit, pero sa totoo lang sa barangay or barrio poblasyon na yon, kaya actually poblasyon treatment plant na ho ang tawag namin doon. That's another 150 mld. So magiging total ho of 450 mld ang makukuha natin sa Laguna Lake. The first 50 mld ho inaasahan namin by 2023, and the balance magiging 150 na yon by 2024. So in terms naman ho,
how are we going to cope? So so therefore, pareho rin ang sinabi ng MWSS, yung Maynilad, how are we going to cope with the shortages that will be forthcoming in the next couple of years? Kasi 2 taon kalahati ang katapusan nitong mga project na to. In the meantime, anong gagawin natin?
Yung Madam Chair, yung pinaka-short term ho naming solution sa ngayon, meron ho kami mga tinatayong mga mobile treatment plants para makuha ho yung excess capacity ng ating mga dams ho pala ng NIA doon sa aming service area. So doon ho nakakapaglagay kami ng mga maliliit na mobile treatment plant. 4 ho ang plano namin gawin dyan with a total of 46 mld. Yan ho, mas mabilisan yan, kaya ho yan sa 1 taon. Pero tama ho kayo, itong mga malalaking planta, inaabot ho talaga kami dyan ng 3 years. Pero critical nga ho talaga, and we hope government talaga will also help us, kasi kailangan ho namin yung next water source, yung tinatawag na Kaliwa Dam. It's also very critical kasi nga napag-usapan din lang kanina, yung tubig ho sa Laguna Lake, mas marami hong treatment kaming ginagawa dyan. So mas mahal ho lumalabas ang treatment cost ng tubig galing sa Laguna Lake versus yung mga sa katulad nung nasa Angat. Siguro ho mga 10 times more expensive ang treatment dahil mas marami ho tayong i-filter at dilinisin sa mga plantang yon. Pero ayun ho, tulong-tulong naman ho kami with MWSS halos, and actually with all the other government agencies, lalo na for short term, dahil marami ho kami naghahati-hati dyan sa tubig. Sa Angat, nandiyan ho yung ating mga farmers. Dito naman sa Laguna Lake, syempre yung mga mangingisda. So lagi ho kaming coordinated with all the government agencies to consider all the stakeholders.
Okay, before we proceed to other questions, I think what would be better so that it's clearer, please submit, MWSS, please submit to us the status of our water sources at the moment and where we are seeking to expand. So lahat ng mga pinagkukunan natin ngayon ng tubig, ilagay ninyo dyan. And also to supplement that, of course, so we can cross-check the commitments of Manila Water and Maynilad. Where are you getting your water sources now? And the timeline of the completion of other water sources in the future. Okay, may we ask that, Secretary? Please take note of those submissions that we are requiring of them. Senator Bina is recognized.
Madam Chair, last na lang before we move to another topic. Pagdating mo dun sa Kaliwadam, di ba ODA to? Are we already paying penalties since hindi pa nga nag-uumpisa yung project, pero ODA to eh. May ganun na ba tayong binabayaran?
Madam Senator, wala pa po tayong binabayaran, Madam Senator.
Kahit penalties, we're not paying. We're not being penalized. Because di ba usually pag ODA yan, may schedule.
Wala pa po, Madam Senator. Wala pa po.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Meron na ba tayong napili na kumpanya na gagawa ng proyektong ito na nag-bid para dito?
Yes. Madam Chair, I think it was awarded to a Chinese company.
Yun nga di ba may mga questions doon?
According to my file, it's China Energy Engineering. Siya pa rin ba ang nakalista?
Yes, Madam Senator. China Energy po ang contractor po natin dito.
Ano ang commitment natin sa kanila? Pag sila gumawa niyan, ano ang ownership nila dyan?
Wala po, Madam Senator. Pag-aari pa rin po ng government to, Madam Senator.
Construction lang sila. Babayaran lang sila for that.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
And you went through the proper bidding process?
Yes, Madam Senator. Nag-bid po ito nung 2018 po na-bid itong project, Madam Senator.
Kailan yun?
2018 po.
Okay, Senator Binay?
Madam Chair, can we just get a confirmation from DOF if it's really true na we're not paying any penalties?
DOF? I know we have a representative from the DOF. I guess wala.
Nawala.
So,
nawala sila.
So kung wala, MWSS, kunin ninyo yung yung update from the Department of Finance. And Secretariat, maybe we should issue a letter to the Department of Finance to answer those concerns.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Nung nag-hearing ba sa House, MWSS, you were present?
Yes, Madam Chair. If this is in reference to the franchise bills, yes, Madam Chair, we were present, Madam Chair.
How about the OSG? Were you present in the House hearing? Parang hindi kayo pumunta, no? Kasi alam mo, pag mga franchise, sinasala muna yan sa House. Ideally, bago pumunta sa amin. So, nagtataka lang ako, ba't hindi kayo nagpakita doon? If ever. Anyway, I heard that Yusek Singson is actually present from the DOF, but he's not speaking. Baka naman naka-on lang naka-log on lang siya. Hindi nakikinig. There she is. Miss Singson.
Sorry, I've been trying to speak. Apologies for that. I think my voice wasn't coming through. Yes, we will get you the information on the ODAs, on penalty. I don't handle those loans, so I just want to make sure the information you get is accurate, Madam Chair. We will get back to you on that query.
Okay.
Okay, Madam Chair. So, is it safe to assume that we shouldn't assume that we're not paying anything? Kasi sabi kasi ng MWSS kanina, we're not paying anything.
Senator Binay, if I may, just the ODAs are a bit more nuanced. It would depend on who is undertaking the project, if it's MWAS or the concessionaires. So there are loans that are syndicated, and basically some are passed on to the concessionaire, and so. So basically, the rule of thumb is this, right? With ODAs, basically, if the concessionaires are the ones paying the loan, they are allowed to basically have that also be built in the model when you calculate for the rates.
No, usually ang question ko lang kasi, I mean, for example, dun sa DOTR, di ba, merong mga existing na ODA, and then hindi pa natutuloy yung project, pero we're paying already penalties. In fact, pinlag na to ng COE na ang laki na nung nagagastos natin dun sa penalty clause kasi kumbaga kahit hindi pa nag-start yung project, we already pay. Di ba may mga timeline yan dun sa mga ODA? At a certain point, kailangan ganito na yung completion. And nakita natin with this Kaliwa, there's nothing at the moment. So I'm just curious if part of the ODA is a penalty clause kung hindi nasusunod yung time frame ng construction.
Senator Binay, I believe that the ODE loans for this, the MWAS and the concession, covering the concession, are very different from the ODAs that you described po sa DOTR. So we will research it further so we can break it down for you. Because it's handled very differently. Here we have an OGCC, which is MWAS, that borrows the loan, right? And that is shared with the concessionaires.
Okay. Can you just submit to the committee?
So DOTR po, it's just that the agency is the one who takes care of the loan, and it's not passed on to any private sector.
Okay, and then I'm just curious, if it's passed on to a private sector, can that private sector pass it on to the consumer?
I believe the financing cost could be passed on, but we can actually ask the RO office to verify that, because they are the ones who approve for us what expenses are ultimately reimbursable by the consumers. It's really the RO who.
So I think the Attorney T can answer that, right? Okay. Thank you, Yusek.
Yes, Madam Chair. Yes, Madam Chairperson, can I answer that?
Go ahead, Attorney.
Yes, yes, that's correct. Any payments made by Manila Water and Maynilad can be recovered from the tariff as a concession fees payment. So I had that expense removed during the last or the fourth rate rebasing. We are projected to have that included during the fifth rate rebasing. So we expect that any payments that will be made will be recoverable.
Okay, but specific to Kaliwa Dam?
Yes. Specific to Kaliwa Dam, yes.
So yung Kaliwa Dam, assuming that there's a penalty for not constructing it on time, ipapass on ng MWSS sa concessionaire? And then si concessionaire ipapass on sa consumer? Magiging ganun ba yung setup?
Sorry. I apologize. Penalties cannot be recovered. Penalties are not recoverable expenses. So they cannot pass on that expense to the consumers.
So sinong sasagot nun? MWSS?
For penalties. It depends who is penalized. But it depends. If MWSS is the one, then I have to defer that to the corporate office.
Okay, so parang at the end of the day, sagot pa rin ng taxpayer kasi since MWSS is government-owned. Parang ganun din, di ba?
Madam Chair, Madam Senator, if I may answer the question.
Yes, please.
With respect to the loan for the Kaliwa Dam, there are no penalty provisions. MWSS as the direct borrower did not incur any or did not sign off on any penalty provisions which are tied up with the progress or the pace of the construction, Madam Chair. So to definitively answer, since we are the direct borrower with the government as the guarantor, we can state categorically that there are no penalty provisions which MWSS is paying or will be charged to MWSS. With respect to the general question, Madam Chair, on the expenses for the construction, which are payments for the loan, which are given to MWSS or passed through MWSS from the concessionaires. Considering that MWSS does not receive any government subsidy, this forms part of what is charged to the consumers or considered as part of the rate rebasing, Madam Chair.
Okay,
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
While we're in the topic, for example, the concessionaire is not able to comply with certain terms of their agreement. Can you give us a general example of what penalties they will be liable for, and if actually the regulatory board has some authority over them? Attorney T, maybe you can answer that.
Okay. Based on the RCA, there are several penalty provisions that have been included or expanded compared to the previous CA. That's what part of the improvements made with regard to the CA. But unfortunately, again, the RO has no authority to impose penalties. We can only recommend. It is actually the MWSS Board of Trustees that can impose penalties. But with regard to the penalties, there are several penalty provisions already included, including non-revenue water, which is new, and we specifically requested for that.
Okay, thank you. Now, so you said that you don't have the power to actually impose those penalties, but the MWSS board can, right? They're the ones. Do we have the representative here? Wala bang representative ang MWSS board dito?
Mama, I am also a member of the board of the MWSS. The process, ma'am, is for RO to recommend any penalties, and it is the board which will approve any recommendation of the regulatory office based on their evaluation.
Can you tell me who are the members of the board?
Attorney Vistil can specifically say the complete names of the board members, ma'am.
How many
Chair?
board members? 9.
We have 9 board members, Madam Chair. The chairperson is Retired General Reynaldo V. Velasco. He is also at the present time the concurrent OIC administrator, Madam Chair. The other members of the board are Trustee Melchor Acosta Jr., Trustee Mariano C. Aligarbes, Trustee Merly M. Cruz, Trustee Jose R. Hernandez, Trustee Melanie Cia Lambino, Trustee Valeriano F. Pasquil, and as ex-officio member, the head of the OGCC, Justice Elpidio J. Vega. Those are the members of the board of trustees, Madam Chair.
Okay, so there are no members of the board present here today, except the OGCC.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Paano na lang yan? Baka naman pagdating sa mga matters of importance, ganyan din, puro na lang si OGCC ang ipapadala nila. Hindi pala nila alam kung anong nangyayari. Okay, is this, I'm sorry, but can you enlighten us? Is this a fixed term for them, or is it
Madam Chair, yes, Madam Chair, under Republic Act number 6234 as amended, the members of the Board of Trustees are presidential appointees and as a necessary consequence serve at the pleasure of the President or are deemed to be coterminous, Madam Chair, with the appointment.
Coterminous, okay. All right. Since we're all of these technical matters. I mean, it would have been nice if a member of the board or the board members were present here today to at least give legitimacy, and if not that, to show their actual endorsement and sincerity in approving this agreement. Anyway, we have here members of the LGUs present. I'd like to hear your experience on the water service that you're receiving. Could you please identify yourself? Anybody from the LGU? Meron ba? Okay, so wala. I guess what I will now, I think the majority leader
Madam Chair, by way of LGU, sorry.
Yes.
Yes,
Madam
Senator
Chair, I
Marcos.
just have if I may, Madam Chair. Yes.
Senator Marcos, is your question in relation to this topic or?
I was just going to make a quick manifestation, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, please, Madam Chair. Please allow Senator Amy to go ahead.
Okay,
yeah.
go ahead.
Thank you very much. There were several Laguna de Bay sources of supply that were mentioned. Napakarami na nila. Putotan, andyan yung Poblacion, andyan yung Cardona, nandyan yung East Bay, andyan yung Ama Bulk Water Supply Project. Nag-aalala lang ako na sa dinami-dami ng legal and illegal structures, pati na rin yung ating legal and illegal fishing, lahat ng mga violations dyan, sana yung LLDA at yung DENR magplano ng long term kasi wala na tayong pinagkunan ng tubig kundi Laguna de Bay. Baka magising na lang tayo isang araw, wala na siya. Yun lang po.
Okay, before we go to Senator Zubiri, let me lay down the premise, and this is, I think, what Senator Zubiri will focus on. There's a revised concession agreement, effectively extends the concession until 2037. On the other hand, the proposed bills grant a 25-year franchise, which, if approved this year, will end in 2046. So what will happen after 2037? Will there be a bidding again? Anyway, let me give the floor now to Senator Mig Zubiri, our majority leader.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chair. It might not be that practical, actually. You're absolutely correct in your observations. They're applying actually for a 25-year concession, and yet the 25-year franchise rather, but yet their concession is only at 16 years. I'm also in business. I'm a businessman aside from being a legislator, and we have power projects in Bukidnon, and you know that, Madam Chair. And the longer the contract is, the easier you can structure your loan, and therefore your rates can go much lower. And we do that in the power industry. And Madam Chair, in this case, wouldn't it be more practical when we grant them the 25-year franchise? Sabay na rin natin yung 25-year concession. And I believe, and we can ask the concessionaires, it would bring down the rates dramatically. And they can stretch now the payment terms, and definitely will be more advantageous, Madam Chair, to our consumers. I think that makes perfect sense, if you ask me. May we ask them, Madam Chair, if we extend first of all, maybe we can ask the concessionaires, if we can extend their concession agreement to time it with their franchise, will that be helpful in terms of rate reduction? And then from then, the next question I'd ask is on the MWSS, that will they object to such a plan or motion? Anyway, we have safeguards, Madam Chair. You're putting safeguards up. If they violate the concession agreement, as we did in the past, government has the power to remove these contest the concession with the concessionaire. So there are going to be safeguards. But for the meantime, if we, I believe in a very good business climate for our country to be able to move forward, particularly in the pandemic, very little people are investing anywhere around the world. So we want to make sure that those who are already invested in the Philippines have a very conducive climate for them to expand, to grow, and at the same time give better service and cheaper service to our people. So maybe we can request either Manila Water or Maynilad to comment on this, Madam Chair.
Yes, quickly, yes, please comment on the observation of our majority leader. And then after that, I would like to hear from MWSS about this revised concession agreement after we grant the franchise. Go ahead, Manila Water first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we actually totally agree with Senator Subiri that if we may be able to extend the concession agreement to coincide with the franchise expiry, that will redound to the benefit of the consumers for a lower tariff, because as Senator Subiri said, the longer recovery period translates to a lower tariff. Precisely that specific process dictates. So we fully support that, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
With Maynilad, Madam Chair, I hope we can allow. Yes, please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, for Maynilad, we support the possibility to synchronize the life of our concession and the franchise. This will be definitely for the benefit of our customers, as this will smoothen the required tariff adjustments to recover the long-term investments. As said already previously by Senator Subiri and our neighbor Manila Water, Mr. Almeida, addressing the synchronization will definitely redound to the benefit of our customers. Thank you.
Okay. Now, please clarify, enlighten us, because we have
Madam
this.
Chair, just to follow up for them, the both of them, because I just want to get a clear number so that we can prove to the people that it's advantageous to them. If I may, Madam Chair, no? Because just 1 minute, is it correct to say that by 2037, if we do not revise the 16-year concession, that it would translate to about 103 pesos. I was doing a bit of math, 103 pesos per cubic meter. But if we extend it to 2025, you're looking at about 67 pesos per cubic meter in 2037. So is that correct to say that that's the huge savings that or the rates are much lower and savings per cubic meter for our consumers? Can somebody confirm that? Because that's a large amount of savings for consumers if it's a 25-year concession. Is that correct, Maynilad and Manila Water?
Madam Chair, if I may address the question.
Yes, please.
Senator Subiri, in our estimate, just to compare, the tariff to be paid by the consumers in 2037 will be lower by 35% if the term of the RCA or the revised concession agreement coincides with the franchise, versus a term that ends in 2037. And that's a substantial reduction, 35%. So again, the absolute amount will be dictated by the expenditures and so forth and so on. But in terms of percentages, our estimate is 35% reduction.
Thank you very much. That's a large reduction in rates for our people, Madam Chair. That's a perfect opportunity for us to keep the prices low and keep our consumers happy. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Maybe we can ask MWSS on their comment on this, Madam Chair.
Actually, Majority Leader, we need to ask from MWSS, okay, which will take precedence, their extension or our franchise. That's number one. But we also need a clarification from the Department of Justice, the DOJ here present. So let's begin with MWSS. Ano ba talagang susundin natin? Itong revised concession agreement nyo that will extend it until 2037, or the franchise agreement, which will take precedence?
Yes, Madam Chair, if I may attempt to address the questions, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Yes, Madam Chair, with respect to the term of the revised concession agreement, which is up to 2037, in relation to the franchise bills, Madam Chair, franchise bills provide that until the term of the revised concession agreement, the concessionaires are bound by the revised concession agreement. So as far as MWSS is concerned, up to 2037, Madam Chairperson, there is no conflict, there is no possibility of disruption with respect to the mandate and the targets that MWSS would want to meet with respect to water supply and sewerage and sanitation. So up to 2037, Madam Chair, my understanding, based also on the wordings of the proposed bills, is that the revised concession agreement would be followed by the concessionaires, even if a franchise is issued and they apply for the corresponding CPCN. It is after, Madam Chair, the expiration of the concession agreement, revised concession agreement, as it presently stands, that the uncertainty may come in, and that is something that we respectfully conveyed in our position paper, Madam Chair. So this now leads me to the statement of the Honorable Senator Zubiri. In principle, it would be offhand advantageous if there is a unanimity in the period of the franchise, as stated in the franchise bills, and the revised concession agreement. Although the same would, of course, entail some adjustments, primarily as to the period of effectivity of the revised concession agreement. It will, however, Madam Chairperson, lead to the same lack of clarity once the concession agreement, if it is extended as posited by the Honorable Senator Zubiri, to coincide with the franchise bills. We raised as well in our position paper, Madam Chairperson, the issues on policy matters as regards the participation of government, the importance of water as a resource, and also we also highlighted the fact that while privatization is recognized and has provided benefits and can provide benefits, we cited several examples, Madam Chair, of countries and cities which scaled down or actually withdrew from their privatization or concession arrangements. But these are matters which we brought before this honorable committee to express our concern. Going back again to the Honorable Senator Zubiri's statements, in principle, we would not be objecting to the same period for the franchise to be granted, if the same is granted, and the revised concession agreement, as the same would then be subject to the same rules under the revised concession agreement. Thereafter, in essence, this would be a public-private partnership, which in principle we recognize. We merely wanted to emphasize that the participation of government, not only as regulator, but as an agency which will ensure that standards are followed, should not be set aside, Madam Chair. So that
Teka muna, alam mo, nalilito na kami dito Kasi franchises are coming really are granted by Congress. Meron ng franchise agreement, may concession agreement pa na magkahiwalay, hindi magkatugma ang mga deadlines. So, in short, maybe, well, I'm glad that the minority leader is present here today. Because we really need further clarification, because we're granting a franchise until 2046. And then they're planning for that long, capital expenditure, etc. But their revised concession agreement will expire 2037. So what happens now when it expires 2037? Hanggang 2046 pa yung franchise nila. So bagong na naman yan? Negotiation?
Madam Chair?
Senator Binay.
But as part of the proposal of our majority floor leader, bakit hindi na lang bigyan na rin, i-extend na rin yung concession agreement para sabay na sila ng franchise? And I think
Kaya
yun lang
nga.
yung tanong kung agree or disagree, pero ang haba ng sagot. Kaya
Hindi, pero,
dito na
hindi,
tayo.
pero nakikita ko kumukunot na yung mga noo ng mga nakikinig. And I know that MWSS is doing their best to explain something that's really confusing. Now, who granted I guess the question would be, who approved the revised concession agreement? Is it the board of the MWSS? Are there government agencies involved? Because we will have to get their also their opinion if they're willing to revise their revised concession agreement. Diba? So sino ba talaga nag-decide itong revised concession agreement? Who gave the authority for this?
Madam Chair, if I may, I believe the departments involved were the Department of Finance, the Department of Justice, the Office of the Government Corporate Counsel, and the Office of the Solicitor General, Madam Chair.
Okay, do we have the Department of Justice present?
Madam Chair?
Senator Binay.
Hindi, question lang. I think yung na-mention mo mga agency, sila yung nag-craft ng revised concessionaire agreement. But I would assume na it got a board approval.
Yes, Madam Senator. This has been approved by the board and duly signed by the chairman of the board.
Okay, and then kung may changes, it's the board who will do it again. Tama?
Yes,
Okay.
Madam
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you for clarifying that, Senator Binay. That's very important. So basically, recommendatory body lang yung finance, yung justice, etc. It's really the board that will make the decision.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay.
That
So walang except for Attorney Vega, there's no board member present here today, right?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Kasi ang problema namin, if we grant this franchise, but your concession agreement ends earlier than the franchise agreement, magkakaroon tayo ng problema dito because the confidence level to be able to roll out as much in investments by the concessionaires will be compromised. So I think we should come to an agreement as to what will take precedence. Is it the franchise agreement or the concession agreement? Anyway, Mr. Almeda.
Madam Chair.
Wait, hold on, Senator Risa. I think Mr. Almeda will want to answer the question first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to state during my opening statement, we actually propose a provision granting MWSS authority to amend the revised concession agreement to extend to its term to the term of the franchise when the public interest so requires. We did our legal study here. Our corporate secretary here, Tony Benitan, can further explain how it can be done or how it is done from a legal side. I'm not a lawyer, so I guess I can defer to our corporate secretary, Tony Benitan, if you can kindly explain the particular suggestion or our proposal to be able to get this franchise term and the revised concession agreement aligned. Attorney Tan.
Madam Chair, with your permission.
Yes, Attorney Tan.
Under the revised concession agreement, Madam Chair, MWSS has two options when the revised concession agreement expires in 2037. Number one is to rebid the contract. Number two, it has the option to do other things that it may find necessary under the circumstances. So we are saying, Madam Chair, that if Congress provides authority to MWSS to extend the revised concession agreement when public interest so requires, will fall under number two option of MWSS under the current revised concession agreement, Mr. Chair.
Senator Risa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm glad to hear Mr. Tan of Manila Water mention the possibility of rebidding. Kasi ito nga po at saka yung usapin ng regular auction, yung isang itatanong ko when it comes my turn to interpolate. So since pinag-uusapan natin itong possibility of Congress extending the concession agreement to the same duration as the franchise, gusto ko lang i-pitch sa resource persons natin the possibility of including a market test. Kasi kung naniniwala tayo na fair and open markets are best for our consumers, then could we possibly include either a regular rebidding of the concession agreement or even just a Swiss challenge? Halimbawa, a Swiss challenge on the 5th year and then every 10 years thereafter for the period of the franchise, at lalo na kung ipahabain natin yung concession agreement to the same period as the franchise. So I just like to throw that in, Madam Chair, to pick the brains of our resource persons, what they think and feel about such a possible market test.
Well, I think with the majority leader would like to say
Madam
something.
Chair, no, again, with due respect to my dear colleague, Ma'am Risa, I think if you're going to, it doesn't make sense for a businessman to pump in billions of pesos on a particular concession when after 5 years he will have to go through a Swiss challenge. Nobody, I'm a businessman, nobody in your right mind will invest that much to be able to give good service to any, to any industry or this particular case, public utility, knowing fully well that every 10 years, every 5 years, every 10 years, there's going to be a rebidding. Because then nobody will, that's the complaint, a lot of complaint of foreign investors in the Philippines. There's no continuity of contract. That's no security of tenure, and therefore we're always left behind. Although I understand the point of Madam Risa, maybe she doesn't want a duopoly or a monopoly. That is correct. However, in practical terms, if you're a businessman, you will not invest that kind of money, and the banks will not lend you that kind of money. There's no security of at least 15 years, for example, for a concession agreement, at the very least, whether it's power, distribution, or water utilities. So yun lang, Madam Grace, just to add, I think that'll be very difficult. Although I agree with Senator Risa, what we can do is strengthen the MWSS, in particular case on rate adjustments, rate hikes, and then eventually protection from our consumers when they go out of line, then definitely they can step in. But when it comes to a Swiss challenge, Madam, that's the reason why in the power industry, which I'm part of, there are no new power plants being built. There are no new power plants being built because they did a new system, which is the competitive selection process, CSP. And now, definitely no one else is bidding in these CSP projects because it's the large players who have already a very small amount, like for example, a large coal-fired power plant. If you're going to put a new power plant, let's say renewable energy, to compete with a large coal-fired power plant, wala kang laban because napakababa na maibigay na rate. So kung sa CSP pa lang, yung sa bidding process, talo ka na, wala na nagtatayo ng panibagong power plants. If you notice, that's the reason why we have power shortages now. One power plant in the Philippines shuts down, everybody else gets blackout. So that's the problem with this selection process, Madam Chair. The practicality of it, that's the practicality of it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Majo. I'll just pursue this point of market test later when my turn comes. I just want to note again that it was Manila Water that mentioned the idea of a rebidding, and I do appreciate that kind of openness to explore options with our committee from our concessionaires. Salamat, Madam Chair.
Okay. Actually, I would like to ask if, as Manila Water has mentioned, when the public interest so requires, that the MWSS will have the ability to extend the agreement. So that's amenable to Manila Water. Now, how about Maynilad? What is your position on this?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Fernandez.
Yes, as I stated previously, we support the opportunity for the synchronization of our franchise and our concession periods. It will definitely benefit our consumers. It will help us in our financing. And I think the proportion mentioned by Manila Water on the potential effect of spreading our investment recovery is correct, around 35%.
Okay. Now, I will pose this question now to Attorney Vega. Hearing our discussion here today, is there a way that we can reconcile the concession agreement with the franchise agreement at this point? Like, instead of making it until 2037, we will just harmonize it and accept the 2046 deadline.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, the provisions of the RCA should be consistent also with the franchise. So that is the basic evaluation that should be done with regards to these bills as to the relationship with the revised concession agreement. Otherwise, there will be some conflicts and there will be a problem with regards to the regulation, the control, and the approval of the rates.
Okay, so how can we cure this legally? In the franchise agreement, can we say that no other agreements will take precedence over this, and then basically null and void yung deadline ng revised concession agreement?
Yes, Madam Chair, it can be done as long as the different provisions will be consistent. In a way that it will not render nugatory the provisions of the revised concession agreement. Second, Madam Chair, it should be stated also clearly on what will be the role of the MWSS in these specific franchise bills which are being proposed in relationship with the concessionaires.
Actually, most of it will remain. I would imagine that the major amendment would just be the date of expiration.
Okay, Madam Chair, if that would be the case, then the problem also, the issue would arise as to what would happen after this revised concession agreement, and the again the role of the MWSS with regards to the control, regulation, and the water sources and the assets of government.
Okay. Clearly, I think we need to be able to thrash this out before we grant the franchise. I think that if there's a letter from like a board resolution from the MWSS with regards to this matter, we have to look clearly into this kasi kundi magkakagulo to pagdating ng 2037. And then our concessionaires won't be able to plan long-term, and as the majority leader pointed out, ang talo ang consumers kasi tataas yung presyo ng babayaran nila. So clearly it's the ball is in the court of the MWSS when it comes to this matter. Before we proceed, I'd like to hear from the SEC, the BIR, the DNR, if there are any issues regarding our applicants. BIR, kompleto ba ang kanilang bayarin at requirements? SEC, about all of their filings and requirements. And then after that, I have the government officials of the local government present here. I'd like to hear some of them with regards to the service of the concessionaires. So let's begin with the SEC. Are you present?
Yes, Madam Chair. Attorney Tan from the SEC.
Attorney Tan, are there any missing documents?
Yes, Madam Chair. As for the SEC, Manila Water and Maynilad is clear from any from their from the what do you call that? It's clear from our office.
So walang pending, both concessionaires.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, Secretary, Attorney Tan. May we go now to the BIR?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Yes.
Good afternoon, Attorney
Tansinko
Tansinko.
po. Yes. Regarding for BIS, ma'am, is that what we have on record is that there's actually with regards to their compliance po, they are so far compliant naman po on the filing matters, their tax filings. With regards to if there are pending assessments or under audit, Your Honor, I think they have about for this year, Your Honor, but it's just a pending LOA. Their previous audits have already been complied with.
So compliant then?
Generally compliant po, Your Honor.
Okay. Kasi wala namang katapusan din ng audit minsan, di ba? So for now, I think they're compliant, basically.
Generally, yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. How about to the DNR? And are they present? Okay. Let me go now to the local government representatives present here today. I think that we have, oh no, well, before that, I'd like to hear from the Laban Consumer position. Laban Consumer, are you here? How about the NWRB?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. This is Attorney Corpus from the National Water Resources Board.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like, as in the earlier part of this hearing, it was stated and admitted by the concessionaires themselves that they are already public utilities or public water utilities. So if they are already public water utilities, the NWRB is the existing agency mandated by law to regulate water utilities. They must therefore be subject to regulation by the NWRB, unless in these proposed bills, there would be created another body with quasi-judicial functions to regulate these water utilities. Would there be a body to be created? It is not clear in the provisions of the proposed bills, Madam Chair.
So what do you propose? I thought it was MWSS na, di ba?
May I proceed, Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
To express the view of the NWRB. From the regulatory standpoint, Madam Chair, we are of the view that the creation of another regulatory body within the structure of a government body performing proprietary functions or government or commercial functions, such as the regulatory office, will lead to fragmented regulation of our country's water resources. Therefore, it is the antithesis of regulation. The creation of such other body to exclusively regulate the operation of waterworks systems by Maynilad and Manila Water is violative even to the certain principles espoused in the Constitution. First, it is contrary to the constitutional prohibition against monopolies and unfair competition. Article 12, Section 19 of the 1987 Constitution, Madam Chair, states that the state shall regulate or prohibit monopolies when the public interest so requires. No combinations in restraint of trade or unfair competition shall be allowed. So in the proposed bill, Madam Chair, Section 1 of which it is stated that the two concessionaires will operate exclusively in the respective areas of operation. So, and if I may go further, Madam Chair, it is worthy to note also that while the 1973 Constitution mandates the state to regulate or prohibit private monopolies, the framers of the 1987 Constitution deleted the word private, thereby making the principle of fair competition broader, stricter, and applicable even to government monopolies. And in the landmark case of Tatat versus Secretary of Energy, the court held that, again, we underline in scarlet that the fundamental principle espoused by the Section 19, Article 12 of the Constitution is competition, for it alone can release the creative forces of the market. But the competition that can unleash these creative forces is competition that is fighting yet is fair. So ideally, this kind of competition requires the presence of not one, not just few, but several players. Ayun po.
Sir, I just have to interrupt you there. First of all,
Yes.
we're dealing with public utilities, which is a natural monopoly. Okay, so I think we're not in the same level of thought and principle here. But thank you for your
Yes, ma'am.
inputs. I will move along now to
Madam Chair.
our Senator Risa is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Gusto ko lang magtanong sa NWRB, Attorney Corpus. I've actually been waiting to pose questions to the board. Unang-una na po tungkol, you mentioned a related topic to one of my questions. Yung, emasculation of NWRB, no, via franchise grants. The proposed bill is privatizing powers that are properly in the mandate of the National Water Resources Board. I refer to the section on the grant of certificates of public convenience. As far as I know po, the NWRB has the authority to grant review and terminate certificates of public convenience. As far as I know also po, the NWRB is also the protector of our groundwater, which we've also been talking about, and it grants and denies application for groundwater extraction based on scientific assessments rather than commercial calculations, for one. The NWRB more than a decade ago, in fact, stopped deputizing water districts and the NIA, the National Irrigation Administration, in the process of groundwater permits, precisely to avoid this conflict between commercial interests and the protection of our non-renewable groundwater sources. And in the bills under consideration, we in Congress transfer this power grant or deny CPCs or to grant and deny water extraction to private companies regulated by the MWSS RO, which is actually an office created by contract and in truth funded by the concessionaire. So I have a question, Attorney Corpus, and also a request to our chair. First question request po, may we possibly request the NWRB and the MWSS to help clarify these concerns?
June 23, 2000.
Anong tingin niyo po doon, Attorney Corpus, before I make the request to the chair? Naku, Madam Chair, parang mahina din ang signal ng NWRB.
Actually, to some matters.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, parang
So please
ayun po, Mr.
respond
Chair.
to the query of Senator Risa. Who did you address it to, Ma'am Risa?
Sir, I mean, Mr. Chair?
Who did you address it to?
Sa ano po, kay Attorney Cruz ng NWRB, na if before I make the request to the chair, if NWRB thinks na we could request them and the MWSS to help clarify these concerns.
You may respond, Attorney Cruz or Attorney.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. We would appreciate meeting with the appropriate offices for realignment of these provisions in the House bill.
Noted, Attorney Corpus, and I will be making the request, the motion to the chair at the proper time. And secondly, Attorney Corpus and Mr. Chair, since none of us, I haven't for sure, none of us seem to have seen the concession agreements that are being referred to in the proposed bills, and that will also effectively amend the coverage of the Public Service Act as far as NWRB powers are concerned. Mr. Chair, could the committee create a technical working group that will comb through the concession agreements?
I believe, Madam Risa, there will be after the hearing, they will set up the chair will set up a technical working group so that we can align and come up with a final committee report on this issue. So yes, definitely.
Salamat kaayo, Mr. Chair. And so therefore, I'm hoping that for one, this matter of division of labor between NWRB and the MWSS regulatory office can be properly clarified and resolved. Salamat, Attorney Corpus. Salamat, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Marisa, Ma'am Risa. We have online as well, Senator Ralph Recto. Would you like to weigh in, Senate President Pro Tem, on the discussions?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Majority Leader. I was listening to the discussion. I support the position of the Majority Leader earlier, and there was a lot of discussion on the concession agreement, the different timeframes between the concession agreement and the franchise application in Congress today. No? And it is correct that the rate should go down if we lengthen the franchise agreement. But just to have a better understanding of this issue, may I pose just a few questions to Maynilad, Manila Water, and to MWSS, no? Majority Leader. First, Maynilad, what is the size of your franchise area?
So it's around 500. Senator, the size of our franchise area is approximately 940 square meters, 540 square kilometers. So that accounts for around 60% of the population of Metro Manila.
Okay. And how many consumers do you have?
In terms of connections, sir, we have around 1.3 million connections. But right now, the estimate is there are around 6 to 7 people per connection. So roughly around 9 million people are our customers.
Okay. But 1.3 million connections?
Yes, sir.
Roughly. Okay. And how many of these connections would have a sewerage system? 30%?
The majority don't have a sewerage system. The only areas with a sewerage system that we cover is Central Manila, and then certain areas that have their own systems, mostly subdivisions, which we've taken over. But for the most part, the strategy for covering sewerage of our service area is what we call the combined system, where we will build the treatment plants and get the water from the canals and the drainage systems before they go to the river. So that's it's called the combined system because the cost of really having a sewerage system or separate connections for all the customers is quite prohibitive.
Yeah. So how many percent of the 1.3 would have a sewerage system?
Right now, the estimates are around 20%. Like we mentioned
20%
earlier.
for
Yes, sir.
Maynilad. Okay.
Yes, sir. And the 4 plants when completed that we're building now will bring us up to 47%.
Okay. When you say 47%, by when?
Around 4 years, sir.
4 years from. Okay, thank you for that. And the same question for Manila Water. What is the size of your coverage?
Sir,
Go
Abelardo
ahead.
Castillo from Manila Water. In terms of size, 1,400 kilometers in terms of square meters, we're actually covering around 6.5 to around 6.8 million in terms of population. We have around a million.
No. The question is, what is the size first? How many kilometers?
1,400 square kilometers.
Okay, so it's bigger than Maynilad?
Yes, because we actually cover also parts of Rizal.
Okay, so that's almost 3 times bigger than Maynilad?
Almost 2.
2.5 times?
No, a little
about
less than 2, yeah.
Okay, and how many connections do you have?
We have almost a million connections.
Okay, so less than Maynilad?
Yeah.
Okay, and how much are your rates?
Around
28
pesos per cubic meter.
Okay, and Maynilad is at 37, is that correct?
Sorry, that's correct.
Okay, and the reason for the difference in rates is because of the bidding?
That's it's a combination, Chair.
Okay.
It's the original bidding price of Maynilad was double the price of Manila Water, but at the same time, it covered 90% of the concession fees or 90% of the original loans of MWSS. So that's incorporated in the tariff.
Got it. Okay. And the reason why I asked this question, I know that there was a short discussion earlier, no? As far as that is concerned, no? That's a problem with our privatization. Yung may premium, ang magbabayad yung user. So maybe we wrote amendments to the BOT law regarding this. So maybe moving forward, we can adopt some of these new ideas. Pababaan ng presyo sa consumer dapat ang bidding. Instead, yung premium for the government, no? Which affects consumers. Now, moving forward, may I ask from MWSS? You mentioned earlier that pricing is done every 5 years. Is that correct? Rate rebasing?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And what factors do you take into consideration?
We take into account the original cash position and the performance of the two concessionaires. If they were able to spend prudently and efficiently, if they are able to do that, then all their expenses that are prudently and efficiently incurred that are related to providing water and sewerage and sanitation services to consumers can be recovered through their tariff. Plus, we take into account their future projects as well.
Okay. So in effect, and what is the allowable rate of return?
Before, during the previous rate rebasing, during the previous concession agreement, the ADR or the WACC is computed based on the current market trend. Right now, the RCA provides a flat 12% return.
Okay. And is that because it is a public utility and that's why you're using the 12% flat rate of return? I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Mr. Chairman, nawala ba yung
Recording in
based
progress.
pricing, which does not have a 12% cap, Madam Chair.
Are you satisfied with that response, Senator Recto? I think we're losing our connections here. In the meantime, maybe MWSS can supplement that response. What
Apologize
happened
for
to
that. We were disconnected for a few minutes, Madam Chair. Maybe on the query or on the subject matter, Madam Chair? On the
The question of Senator Recto is about the maximum, if I'm not mistaken, the maximum rate of return that is allowed from the concessionaires.
As far as we know, Madam Chair, based on the revised concession agreement, it is capped at 12%.
Okay, Senator Recto, did you get that response? I think we lost connection with Senator Recto. So in the meantime, maybe we can ask. Okay, the local governments present here today to share with us their experience with the water service. Do we have anybody here from the local government, of any official?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. With respect to Valenzuela City, Madam Chair, we will submit a position paper considering that we just received the invites yesterday, Madam Chair. We will collate all the data from the respective departments and we will submit it immediately to your office. But for input purposes, Madam Chair, the Maynilad has a ongoing memorandum agreement
Recording in
properties
progress.
na dapat sana napag-usapan prior before the implementation. So it becomes a litigious cases, Madam Chair.
Okay, I have the city government of Valenzuela has a very good track record of good governance. So I'm glad that you have that to protect your constituents also. But it also highlights the many different processes and compliance that need to be met by the concessionaires. Hindi talaga madali. You have to deal with the national government, you have to deal with the MWSS, you have to deal with the local governments. So anyway, again, a franchise is really a service. Maybe that's why. Any more questions? Because I think what we need to do now is to look at all of the submissions that we request. Okay, Senator Lisa, you are recognized.
Salamat, Madam Chair. If I may, just before my remaining few questions, just a brief manifestation. Madam Chair, this grant of franchises for the MWSS concessionaires is going to be an extraordinary transition for how service providers are to be regulated, how they are to be compensated, and how they will be dealing with risks to their businesses. It took many months and a small army of legal experts to formulate the concession agreement and the legal framework. We need to get this right, or water services in Metro Manila could be in serious legal entanglements for many years to come. We don't want the taps to run dry in the same manner that legal problems of MRT led to the deterioration of our rail services. We shouldn't rush this, Madam Chair. We should ensure that the current arrangements are indeed going to be fair to the consumers, for the concessionaires, and for the MWSS, which is the other party to the MWSS concession contracts. There are many things that remain opaque, and I submit that the revised concession agreements should be submitted to the committee. And if necessary, aspects of the new concession agreements should be made part and parcel of what the committee will be deliberating upon prior to the grant of any franchise. That's my general motion, Madam Chair. My initial request is for the MWSS to provide this committee with copies of the concession agreement developed in the past months. So could all members of this committee be furnished with copies of the concession agreements? That is my request, Madam Chair. And I hope the other issues I'll be raising of the need for prudence and care. So I just have a few other questions, Madam Chair, that I wasn't able to raise earlier. The first on rate rebasing. So where would the concessionaires appeal if they disagree with the tariffs or performance targets that have been set? Dun po ba sa NWRB?
Who are you addressing this question to, Senator Lisa?
Well, I guess then I could address it to the NWRB, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Or rather, Madam Chair, to the MWSS.
MWSS?
Yes, please.
Madam Chairman, Madam Chairwoman, according to the new RCA, the decisions of the MWSS RO are not subject to arbitration. It's silent on where our decisions would be appealable to, but I understand that under the MWSS charter, the rates are appealable to the NWRB. So I believe that if there's any dispute, it will be to the NWRB.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. And Attorney, what tariffs and performance targets have been set for the next, say, 5 years of the franchise?
We have not yet arrived at that at this time. We are still waiting for the next rate rebasing. Under the RCA, they have until March of 2022 to submit their business plan.
I see. Thank you, Attorney. Madam Chair, let us please make these such substantive matters a part of the franchise grant. May I continue with my questions on the rate rebasing, and I'd appreciate it, Sir Attorney, if MWSS could continue to respond. Or maybe also NWRB, because my next question po is, in what way are the concessioners now going to be under the jurisdiction of the NWRB? For example, can consumers oppose tariffs or say even propose service expansion? Halimbawa sa resettlement sites. Can they do that through the NWRB if it turns out that the MWSS does not listen to them in a particular instance? If not MWSS, could the NWRB answer that? Is Attorney Corpus still here, Madam Chair?
I hope so.
Yes, Madam Chair. So do I.
Yes, Madam Chair, Your Honor.
Madam Chair.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
Yes, po.
Yes, I was about to go to that point when I was stopped a while ago, Madam Chair, Your Honors.
Signal.
That considering the admission earlier that the concessionaires are public water utilities operators now, they should be under the regulation of the NWRB. And to answer the question of Your Honor, all complaints regarding water utilities, the original jurisdiction of which is with the NWRB.
All right. I understand. Thank you, sir. Attorney, will the concessionaires' return on investments have a ceiling of 12% or even less?
They have a maximum ceiling of 12%, Madam Chair, Your Honor.
Thank you, Attorney. And how should that return on rate base be computed? Ano po dapat halimbawa yung denominator?
In the National Water Resources Board, Madam Chair, Your Honor, we have here a methodology. And if we would compute the investments and the hand in hand with the operations expenses, they should only have a maximum 12% return on investment.
And ano po yung denominator? I ask that because if the MWSS assets are to be part of the assets on the basis of which the allowable maximum returns are to be computed, hindi po ba dapat na yung MWSS ay entitled dun sa financial returns na yon in proportion sa mga assets in use na sila yung may-ari? Does the MWRB have an opinion on that?
We are not clear with the workings of the NWSS with regard to that, but the NWRB has a clear-cut guidelines on the return on investment, Madam Chair, Your Honor.
So baka Attorney Corpus, posibleng dun sa TWG na maaring buuin ng committee under the leadership of the chair, baka dun pwedeng, yun yung isang pwedeng i-clarify at i-finalize. Ano po?
Yes, Madam Chair, Your Honors. That's why we would like to ask if the
Madam Chair, naputol na naman po yung signal nila.
Ano ba yan?
But in any case, Madam Chair, while we wait for Attorney Corpus to come back literally online, so again, ayan na sila. Okay, sir. Attorney Corpus.
Ang ganda ng pagka-freeze ng screen.
Yun na nga
Parang nag-iisip lang siya eh. Okay.
Po. Yes, Attorney Corpus.
yes, that's why we would like to be clarified if another regulatory body would be created, Madam Chair, Your Honors, there might be created a multiple regulatory body to regulate water utilities, which is, as I've said earlier, an antithesis in regulation. That's all, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Attorney. Noted po, and as I said, I'm confident that kapag binuo ng chair ng komite yung TWG, that this is one of the important issues that could be resolved. So in relation to that, Madam Chair, I'm hoping we will use the franchise grant to empower consumers, especially those that don't receive adequate service levels yet. Kasama na po yung mga informal settler families na nakukuha yung tubig nila through mother meters, no? Na napakamahal pa sa kanila sa ngayon. Regarding the rebidding mentioned earlier, regular auction or rebidding, yung pinitch kong idea about a market test. Just one last question about that. Adequately addressed na po ba ng consumer desk provision sa franchise bills yung ganitong usapin? Some kind of an in-house or a built-in market test. I wonder, Madam Chair, who could address this question? Is it the MWSS? Is it Attorney T who would care to address this question? Madam Chair.
Sorry, my apologies. Can you repeat the question?
I'm asking this last question about my interjection earlier about regular auctions or rebidding, and in the interim, is this kind of a market test adequately addressed by the consumer desk provision in the franchise bills?
I'm not part of the negotiations with regard to this. I think I have to defer to the corporate office.
All right. So, Madam Chair, would the spokesperson, the resource person from the MWSS corporate office?
Yes, Madam Senator, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
Yes, just to clarify, Madam Senator, your question pertains to the franchise bills, Madam Senator, or the
Yes.
revised concession?
Well, particularly in the franchise bills, kung meron na po bang consumer desk provision doon na sa assessment nyo sapat ng sasagot doon sa in a way requirements of a market test, or to put it another way, attorney, kung yung mga consumers ay naniniwala na sobra yung presyo, paano i-address yung reklamo nila?
With respect to the draft franchise bills, Madam Senator, I believe the only provisions related to that would be on the process for setting tariffs, rates, and charges. But I do not see any specific provision, Madam Senator, pertaining to a complaints desk or a help desk. So my interpretation would be that such concerns would be addressed or could be raised when it comes to the setting of tariff rates.
I see.
But as to a specific provision, Madam Senator, I do not see that in the proposed bills.
Salamat, attorney. Of course, alam naman natin pag dun sa setting of tariff rates na proseso, wala namang consumer participation talaga dyan. So maybe that's a good area to also address, hopefully during the TWG, kung papaano mag-provide ng some kind of a consumer desk a window para sa mga consumers habang pending pa yung any kind of idea about a market test. Salamat, attorney. Appreciate it. Maybe, Madam Chair, if I could go back to NWRB on the franchise requirement. Attorney Corpus, are you online, attorney?
Attorney Corpus is very popular with Senator Hontiveros.
Opo, Madam Chair, napansin niyo po. Parang hindi pa rin sila, kahit popular, hindi pa rin sila online. Maybe I'll just go to another question, Madam Chair. I think it's my last question. Oh, actually, that's my last question sana, Madam Chair. So, kung hindi pa online ulit yung NWRB, I can wait till before the chair suspends or
I believe it's back online.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, Attorney Corpus, salamat po. I need to ask you a question. I want to ask you a question about the franchise requirement. So, ang tanong ko po, Attorney Corpus, NWRB, hindi kaya dapat na lahat ng mga PPPs, oh my gosh. So, nasasobra na kami sa Blue Ribbon tungkol sa PPE tuloy na sabi ko. Hindi kaya't lahat ng private-public partnerships, PPPs, at saka joint venture partners ng mga LGUs at pati ng ating public sector entities, hindi kaya dapat mag-apply din silang lahat para sa franchises? At kung ganun, shouldn't they be regulated ultimately by the NWRB?
Your Honor, Madam Chair, actually under the public service law, all public utilities should be regulated. And with the NWRB, the issuance of the Certificate of Public Convenience is the way to regulate public utilities. The only exception with the issuance of Certificate of Public Convenience is that government-owned or controlled corporations, public corporations operating public utilities need not have the certificate, Madam.
I see.
But then they should be fully regulated also, and that is stated in the public service law. So all public utilities should be regulated with no exception.
I see. So are you telling the committee, Attorney Corpus, na itong usapin na pati mga GOCCs, although exempted from the requirement to receive a
certificate,
ay ma-fully regulate din sila, and therefore we should are you telling the committee that Congress should find a way to still achieve this end in faithfulness din sa public service law?
Yes, Madam Chair, Your Honors. In all legislative meetings in which the board was in attendance, the trend is to consolidate all regulatory bodies in the water sector into a single regulation agency, Madam Chair, Your Honor. This move is laudable because it is consistent with the constitutional principles against unfair competition and against exclusive franchise. An integrated regulatory framework is more advantageous in terms of management and performance monitoring, uniform and consistent policy making, and eventual streamlined implementation of standard rules as will be formulated by a single regulatory body. So
yan ba yung Attorney Corpus? Yan ba yung related dun sa proposed bill ko na Department of Water?
Exactly, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Attorney Corpus, and thank you, Madam Chair. And Attorney Corpus, follow up lang yung bahagi ng tanong ko na hindi nyo pa nasagot. Should private agents of water utilities also get franchises?
To answer your question, Madam Chair, Your Honors, all operators, managers and operators of waterworks system should be regulated.
Alright.
Yung agent po, depende kung what kind of agent they are. If they really and actually operate the waterworks system, then they should be regulated.
All right, understood, Attorney. And just in the interest of fairness, yung equal application of the law, ito po yung huling tanong ko sa inyo, hindi kaya lahat nitong mga PPPs, joint venture partners ng mga LGUs, public sector entities, at pati yung GOCCs na binanggit ninyo, shouldn't they follow the terms and conditions imposed by the DOJ on the Metro Manila concessionaires? Patas lahat, especially if these are indeed in the best interest of the consumers and in accordance with law.
Yes, as I've said earlier, all water utilities should be regulated with no exception.
All right.
Madam Chair.
All right. Maraming salamat, Attorney. Lastly, Madam Chair, I respectfully suggest that the Chair may wish to commission a baseline study of the terms and conditions of all PPP contracts with a view to assessing the need to get these to apply for franchises or to put them under a more transparent regime of regulation, also in consonance with the proposed Department of Water, Madam Chair. So maraming salamat po sa ating mga resource persons at maraming salamat din po, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. I think the Majority Leader has raised his hand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I'm starving. I haven't had lunch, and I think we've exhausted already all our questions with the resource persons. I move that we proceed with the technical working group to craft the committee report. Madam Chair, I so move.
Okay, that's a welcome motion. I would like to read the following submissions that we are expecting from our resource persons and some of the concessionaires. For today, from the MWSS, an update written report on the SC case violation of the Clean Water Act, the ancestral domain claims in the areas traversing Kaliwa Dam, the status of water sources, and where we are seeking to expand. From the concessionaires, the CapEx for the construction of the sewerage system, the list of water sources timeline of completion of other water sources. From the DOF, the letter of explanation with a breakdown of penalties under the ODA. I would also like to add the MWSS board to give their position about reconciling their revised concession agreement with the franchise agreement that we have, so that we only have one deadline as opposed to having two timelines. And there are others also that if I may not have mentioned, you will certainly hear from our committee secretariat. I think Senator Risa has her hand raised. Will you be adding to our submissions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I may request the Chair to request submission of the concession agreements themselves so that we may consider them and their contents in our approval of the franchises, Madam Chair. Salamat po.
Thank you. So before I conclude this hearing, before I adjourn this hearing, I would just like to put things in its proper perspective. First of all, I think that the reason why we are really going through this agreement very carefully before we grant the franchise, we want to make sure that there's a certainty of contracts once it is approved. Di pwedeng like, mahirap kasi to change the goalposts in the middle of the game, di ba? So mabuti ngayon na pag-aralan natin itong mabuti kasi mahirap para sa lahat kung hindi natin sinusunod yung napagkasunduan natin at bigla na lang babawiin. Number two, let's not forget also those of us or those of you who grew up in the 80s, in the 70s. Remember when it was Nawasa who was supplying also the service to us. Pagbukas mo ng gripo, talagang kalawang yung lumalabas. Bumuti-buti na. Okay? To be fair to our concessionaires, bumuti-buti na. At malaki ang ipinagbago. In fact, marami sa kanilang nakatanggap ng mga awards internationally for the service that they provided. Okay? So let's also not forget that and also the different challenges that they're facing with our regulatory requirements. Now, our request, of course, also is to take into consideration the needs also of the consumers because they cannot be shocked with an all of a sudden increase in fees when we're talking about a very basic need, which is water, and services really demanded the proper service from our concessionaires. So with that, I would like to thank all of our resource persons here today and the senators who took an active part in our investigation and our hearing. We will continue with a technical working group and hopefully we will be able to discuss this in plenary as soon as possible. This hearing is now adjourned. Thank you.
Salamat, Madam Chair.